Let him be willing to abandon everything. Abandon the glory and riches. Abandon the identity of the clan. Leave the capital with him, hand in hand for the rest of your life. But not all love has an ending. A talented and beautiful woman in a picture book. There can always be lovers who eventually become married. Because that's a picture book. There are too many unpredictable changes in reality. They ended up falling victim to political struggles. Maybe before the doom strikes. The young lovers are still imagining a future of double accommodation. Xu Qian'an calmly told the story. I remembered a song I heard many years ago. Mandarin ducks and amphibious butterflies fly in both directions. The garden is full of spring and is intoxicating. Quietly asked the holy monk's daughter if she was beautiful. The daughter is not beautiful. What about royal power and wealth? What are the precepts and rules that you are afraid of? I only wish that the world would last forever. Stay with the person I like. She had never met the county lord of Pingyang, but I seem to see a bright girl in front of me. Have a pair of smiling eyes. Standing beside Monk June vividly. Insert a wildflower in your sideburns. Ask him if the flowers look good or if I look good. Xu Qian'an suddenly found out. I sang it unconsciously. He hurriedly got up. His Royal Highness hug fist forgives humble duty. It's hard to help yourself for a while. Offended the Lord of Bin Duong. Princess Huiqing stared at him deeply. Brew for a few seconds. To keep the voice calm. Demodo Palace already knows. Stand down. Xu Qian'an left quickly. I vaguely heard the cry of Princess Linen behind her. A carriage came galloping in. Stopped under the stargazing building. The face is white and bearded. But there is already a little crow's feet of father-in-law Lu. Didn't wait. He took the ladder and jumped out of the carriage in a panic. Gong Lu rushed into the stargazing building. Hold high the holy decree in your hand. Your Majesty has a decree. The boat room is in a hurry to enter the palace. He shouted 3 times in a row. A voice suddenly came from Lu's father-in-law's side. Don't shout. The teacher has already gone to the palace. Gong Lu was taken aback. Miriam Yang, when will you return to Beijing? Waiting for Miriam Yang. When the capital needs me, proudly said. And I came back. Gong Lu sprayed him unhappily. God chatters all day long. Can't talk well. After saying that, he turned around and left. Miriam Yang's addiction to pretending to be forced was immediately dispelled. The Jinshi of the Yamen who beat the guards. Xu Qian'an, who was sitting cross-legged and watching, suddenly felt palpitations. It's like staying up all night after an all-nighter. The kind of palpitations that I heard when QQ ticked. Daoist Jin Lian said that number 6 has been found. At present, it is still fighting the Yamen. You can rest assured. Xu Qian'an frowned. The heart is long. You are not saying this nakedly. Is there a 2-5 boy of the Heaven and Earth Society in the Yamen? Number 5 said. Found number 6. But number 6 is more dangerous when he fights the Yamen. I've heard that Dafeng's watchmen are all wicked. In cold blood. Number 1 said. Rumors are not fun. The Taoist is the one you found the number 6. Jin Lian replied. As expected. Number 6 was indeed sealed. The man who sealed him was a strong man in black robes. He exuded danger all over his body. Let the poor road not dare to act rashly. Poor Dao revealed the matter to the Yamen of the watchman. Xu Qian'an smiled slightly and said that this is okay, so that my sources can explain. If the number 1 is in a high position in the imperial court, he must have known about the case of the county lord of Bin Duong. Reverse reasoning. I'm the Gong who found the traces of Hung Hui. It will become very suspicious. And the Taoist chief said this. It's the equivalent of giving me a negative call. If anyone asks, I can say that I am an enthusiastic sunrise mass report, thus dissociating myself from number 3. Number 1 said, I got a message. Samber case. It was involved in the case of the disappearance of the county lord of Bin Duong a year ago. Soon there will be a big storm in the capital. Number 4 jumped out to eat melons. What the situation? Number 1 put the main case of Bin Duong County. Briefly told the members of the Heaven and Earth Society. A few words sketched a scene of missing sword light in everyone's hearts. Blood-shadowed binding. It gives everyone plenty of room for association. Number 5 said, "Is your Dafeng heart black? It's so despicable and insidious." Number 4 asked who found out the case. See this issue. Xu Qian'an didn't carry one. Enter the information I heard. It is a gong of the yamen of the watchman. It's called Xu Qian'an. Number 4 was slightly stunned. Why does Xu Qian'an sound a little familiar? Xu Qian'an added, Number 1 when investigating the hydrogen punching of Yunlu Academy. This person was mentioned before. I also paid attention. He came to a terrible conclusion. Several members of the Heaven and Earth Society have expressed similar questions. What a terrible conclusion. Xu Qian'an smiled treacherously. Enter the information. This sub is extremely smart. Unparalleled talent. It's not something in the pool. The crowd silently wrote down the name. To be so praised by number 3. This is called Xu Qian'an's gong. It's definitely a very powerful character. At this moment, the Golden Lotus Dao chief was a little embarrassed. There was no desire to speak. At this time, number 2 bubbled and spoke number 3. I found traces of Zhou Qixiong. Number 1 immediately jumped out and asked where he was. Number 2 replied to one of my brothers. I saw him in a cottage. That cottage is exactly the one I'm going to talk about in the near future. You wait. Wait for me to pull out the stockade. I will send you back to the capital. Xu Qian'an was a little shocked. Number 2 really found Zhou Qixiong. Yunzhou is so big. Bandits are in trouble. Even if he has a lot of energy in Yunzhou. I didn't find Zhou Qixiong so quickly. Either it's a coincidence. Either I'm underestimating number 2's ability. But as long as you take Zhou Qixiong, you can know who was behind the collusion with the demon clan. Who the hell is it? Xu Qian'an's heartfelt thanks. Thank you. Number 2 said the little things. Friends from all over the world are willing to sell me face. Finding someone is nothing to me. Everyone thought that your face was not ordinary. In the internal communication of the Heaven and Earth Society, Xu Qi is at ease. It's a lot more down to earth. Zhou Qixiong is another insurance for him. Catch the person. Even if the Bin Duong County chief case could not exonerate him, he still doesn't need to panic. At dusk, Xu Qian'an waited for Wei Yuan, who came back from the palace. Xu Qian'an rushed up. He said in a low voice, Wei Gong. Wei Yuan, who had gray temples, glanced at him. As he walked, he said that King Yu had written a blood letter. Sued Uncle Ping Yuan and the governor of the household department to the servant. And the 3 of them murdered the royal family. Xu Qian'an nodded, and His Majesty handed it over to Sansi for review. Wei Yuan shook his head. Your Majesty's anger is no less than that of King Yu. He couldn't wait that long. A decree was immediately written. Please enter the palace. Confront those 3. Also present at that time were the rolling princes of the court. Xu Qian'an already knew the result, but he still asked. As a result, Wei Yuan sighed. Murder of royal clansmen. The notice of the 3 tribes will come down tomorrow morning at the latest. The 2 parties are finished. Xu Qian'an was slightly moved. The so-called 3 tribes. They're the father's family, the mother's family, and the wife's family. It can be classified as capital punishment, second only to the rebellious E9 clan, although Uncle Ping Yuan was destroyed. But compared to the uprising of the 3 tribes, not to mention, I have to look at hundreds of people again. Those relatives within the 3 clans of Pinji Wanbo. None of them can escape. One of the other 2. Xu Qian'an wondered. Liangdang Wei Yuan nodded. The Liang party was in the struggle for the Jade King to withdraw from the stage of power. The biggest beneficiary, Zhang Feng, the secretary of the Ministry of War. He was headed by Sun Minzhong in several generations. Ping Yuobo joined the Liang party last year. The court party was too far away from him. Xu Qian'an didn't care. He only cares about his future and his life. Xu Qian'an asked Wei Gong in a low voice. "That's my business." Wei Yuan shook his head and was not in a hurry. "Your Majesty is angry. It's not a good idea to mention it at this time." Xu Qian'an nodded. "Say goodbye to Wei Yuan." He knew it was true, but he couldn't help it. Somewhere in the evening room, a white hand holds a pen. Write on letter paper, "The Honorable Master." The Samber case has come to an end. The Ministry of Rights once said that cooperating with us is to match the tiger. He saw it accurately. A year ago, I was inadvertently witnessed what happened to the Lord of Pingyang and the monk Hung Hui. Hung Hui is dead but not stiff. The original spirit condensed resentment. I made him a puppet and kept him by my side, and let you know about it. You say your opportunity has come. The year of the inspection. It is the beginning of our 500-year plan. Please forgive me for my great disrespect. I wasn't optimistic. See Tianjin's integrity. The arrival of Renzong. They are all one of the few strong people in the world. Can be in this incident. The two had some kind of tacit understanding. Chose to sit on the sidelines. Once again, praise Master Ning's intelligence is unparalleled in the world. Emperor Yuan Jingdi's attitude towards the case was not positive. Otherwise, a Gong will not be appointed as the host officer. It's all in anticipation. But the Gong was extremely powerful. The sense of smell is even sharper. In the process of investigating the case, his descent was discovered by him. He came several times to ask Fons to snoop on the invitation. Take the liberty of asking, "Did you do it on purpose?" In addition, there have been investigations in other cases of beating guards. As a last resort, I had to push the out and make a fire. I know he's from your people. I beg your pardon for making a claim. But don't worry. The thing has been given to the person who deserves it. I'm sorry. All the clues of the tax bank case are broken. I've been in contact with Zhou Li many times. It's really just a little clever kid. It is not clear what his father Zhou Shilang has planned. Here I would like to make 4 things clear to my master. First, the tax bank is escorted on the way. Zhou Shilang had many opportunities to make a move. It's safer that way. But he chose to swallow 150,000 tax silver in the capital. This is puzzling. Zhou Shilang is a smart person, but he took a step forward. Chi, I think there must be a reason for this. However, Zhou Shilang died unexpectedly during exile. No one can give me an answer anymore. The second is based on reliable sources. Zhou Shilang in the past 20 years. The silver that was engulfed was more than 1 million. But when Zhou Fu was raided, the imperial court only looted a few thousand taels of silver. Where did the money go? The third was discovered through the investigation of the case of the 4 heavenly guards. The youngest disciple of the superintendent is called Chu Kai-wei. She is a very beautiful and interesting little girl. Of course, she is far from being compared to the noble and beautiful host. What I'm going to say is, the warlock of the 4 heavens called him Little Senior Sister or Sixth Senior Sister. And there are only 5 real personal disciples. The people of the 4th, which God called, killed Zhao County commander of Taikon County. It was the official who discovered the Shaoshi mine. The wizards of the witch god cult intervened in this matter. But they could have been more ingenious, or a more subtle way to extinguish the mouth. Chose to kill people in dreams. It is not difficult to deduce. They tried to mislead the imperial court. Pour dirty water on the king of Jinbei. The relationship between Emperor Jing of Yuan and King Jinbei was divided. Finally, there is a small thing that is hard to talk about. I'm in love with a man who shouldn't be loved. I would like to ask the master for mercy. Remake my flesh for me, a servant who will always serve you. Another piece of the secret room. Honorable Lord, the plan for the tax and silver case failed. I have the main responsibility. Zhou Shilang's death was purely his stupidity. He made himself a wise son. This led to a series of failed schemes. As you might expect, The plan of the 10,000 demon kingdom has succeeded. They unleash the seal beneath the mulberry. I'll be in the letter. A detailed description of the information gained over the past year. About 1 year ago, the struggle between the nobles and the civil officials. It has entered a white-hot stage. The Jade King represents the entire noble force. In the acquiescence of Emperor Yuan Jing, he served as the secretary of the military department. It's just one step away from being in the cabinet. In the process, his daughter-in-law, the county lord of Pingyang, fell in love with a monk in Qinglong Temple. The two decided to elope and pray to the sun of the distant country of the world, because it is based on the beauty of the Lord of Bin Duong. The three gentlemen were going to insult him, and then he will kill them, but it was met with fierce resistance from the other side. The Lord of Pingyang committed suicide. The sister-in-law of the 10,000 demon kingdom in the capital of Dafeng. I stumbled upon this scene. He used the bones to refine Hung Hui into a form puppet. Holding this secret, then I gave in. Daebong launched a new round of reconnaissance. The open and covert struggle between the parties has intensified. I have to say, Emperor Yuan Jing was a terrible emperor. His imperial mind is as good as fire. But he wasn't a good emperor. In his eyes, there is only power and immortality. The spy of the 10,000 demon kingdom holds this secret in his hand. Coincidentally, he was looking for a partner in Beijing. In the end, he chose the Ministry of Rights to go to Shangshu, and the forces behind him, because it happened to be during that period. The Daoists in Taikang County discovered the Shaosher mine. This is exactly what the remnants of the 10,000 demon kingdom need. There is no one in this world who can be silent, under the noses of the superintendent and the Taoist of the people. Infiltrate Songpa and destroy the Yongzhen Mountain and River Temple. But gunpowder can help them with this task. And the forces behind the Ministry of Rights has been eager for the Patriarch to overwhelm other parties, as one of the two parties in the way. And of course it's on their cleanup list. The two sides hit it off. An agreement was reached. The Ministry of Rights Shangshu helped the remnants of the 10,000 demon kingdom blow up the Yongzhen Mountain and River Temple, release the seal at the bottom of the temple. The remnants of the 10,000 demon kingdom pushed Hung Hui to the stage. Guide the watchmen to investigate the disappearance of the county lord of Pingyang, in order to get rid of their own suspicions. The Ministry of Rights Shudong used the case spirit fearless protection. Through him, Zhou Qixiong sent gunpowder into the imperial city, buried under the mountain and river temple in Yongzhen, and killed Dali Temple and ceremony. The ministry and the palace errand have a total of 9 lives. To confuse the public, misleading the organizers of the 3 yamen. They even tried to plant the abandonment of the party through gunpowder. Publication of the book. It's a pity that I went to the causeway. Xu Qian'an. I assassinated Zhao Xianling. Try to mislead him. Let him go and check on the king of the north. It's a pity he wasn't fooled. This son is very shrewd. Jingo is 100 households. Zhou Qixiong deliberately killed Lu Han, a small organ. Attract the attention of the watchmen and the government. And in the other party's questioning, use a magic weapon to block the forgetfulness technique, guiding the watchman to turn his gaze to Qinglong Temple, only to find that Hung Hui closed the elopement case. Exploring the partisan feud of 1 year ago. It was a brilliant move. I think that 100 households can do it. No doubt. It was the daughter of the demon emperor who was personally dropping the child. That's how it happened. There are still 2 points of inferiority that have not yet been clarified. The first is to work tirelessly. The seals under Sambo have not yet been identified. What exactly is sacred? But one thing is clear. He has a great deal to do with Buddhism. The purpose of the remnants of the 10,000 demon kingdom to release him has not been ascertained. Second, the attitude of the traitorous government is true. It's unpredictable. If it is said that Emperor Yuan Jing's purpose is to open up into essence, the lowly position can still guess a thing or two. The mind of the traitorous government is not a lowly function. Obviously, he didn't do anything. Humble but always felt. Everything was expected and under his control. After that, Xu Qian'an returned home, had dinner, told the second uncle about the progress of the funeral case, and the truth of the Bin Duan County Maine case. Second Uncle Xu was stunned when he heard this. These readers are really worse than the other. Although Lao Tzu cut a lot of people back then, but compared to them, it's just very bright. You remember not to talk to the reader in the future. If you can move the knife, let's not horn. Otherwise, I don't even know when I planted it. Xu Qian'an was a little nun. The heart says that you are afraid that you will not forget. I have a son who reads. After eating, Xu Qian'an was about to return to his small courtyard. At this time, the aunt coughed hypocritically. Eyes looked to the side. Say, I asked someone to make you a dress. Lingwei will send it to you when you turn around. I don't bother to care if it fits or not. Anyway, you don't like to wear it or not. Xu Qian'an was surprised. The sun is not coming out of the west today. Auntie gritted her teeth. A rolling word popped out of the ruddy little mouth. Xu Qian'an immediately rolled back to his small courtyard. The moment I opened the door, he suddenly palpitated. It's not the kind of palpitations that come with handing over a book. Rather, the hairs stand on end. Goosebumps, bulging hearts. Xu Qian'an stiffly turned his head to look at the bed. I saw a red, severed hand lying quietly on the bed. His scalp tingled instantly. Adrenaline rushes. Cold sweat rolled down the skin one by one. The crimson severed hand lay quietly on the bed. The epidermis protrudes with dark blue blood vessels. Xu Qian'an's feeling now. It's like just watching Yamamura-sensei in the living room. I went back to my bedroom to sleep while I was scared. When I opened the door, I found Chu Runmei standing next to the bed, staring at him with white pupils. The fear in my heart exploded. Every nerve was urging him to run away. At this time, Su Xian saw it. The index finger of the severed hand moved slightly. The next moment, the air seemed to become viscous. Su Xian thinks, I am an old cow who has fallen into the quagmire. There is a body of thieves, but it's hard to take a step. The 5 fingers of the severed hand moved. Then he crawled out of the bed with one finger on his feet. Crawl along the ground to Xu Qian'an. This scene is too terrifying. It's like witnessing a scene from a horror movie. Xu Qian'an couldn't move. Rolling his eyes, he watched in despair as he crawled to his feet. Follow your pants all the way. He wants to parasitize me. It's like a parasitic monk of Hung Hui. But why are you staring at me? I'm just a mediocre gong. Xu Qian'an couldn't resist. His eyes widened instantly. Expression of fear. Then his mouth was stretched open. The severed hand invaded the fingers roughly. Inch by inch, the palm of the hand went deep into the throat. The process is quick, because the severed hand did not consider Xu Qian'an's bearing capacity at all. Like an alien, rough and simple passed through the mouth, passed through the throat. Xu Qian'an wailed in pain. A lifetime is the same. It was as if it had been blown into countless pieces. I don't know how long it took in the haze. He saw a temple. There is no worship of the Buddha in the temple. On top of the Faxiang futon sat a young monk. Xu Qian'an tried his best to see his appearance clearly. But the monk's face seemed to be shrouded in mist. I can't see it clearly. Why I'm here? Did I die and enter Western bliss? It can't be a guy like me who ignores Buddhists. The Buddha would only clamp my head with the door, then kick me out of Elysium. Xu Qian'an thought self-deprecatingly. Suddenly, I heard the gentle voice of a young monk. The little monk wanted to use the donor's body to warm the broken arm. I hope the donor will be accommodating. Xu Qian'an was shocked. He's the monster. Severed hand, he said tentatively. I'm going to be incommensurate. The young monk sat quietly. Ignore him, Xu Qian'an said in a deep voice. Who are you? Why was it sealed in Sambo? The young monk said, the little monk's dharma is called the divine book. After saying that, he paused. The tone was a little hesitant. Why am I in Sambo? I can't remember. Why am I sealed there? Where am I from? I'm Uncle God. But why am I in Sambo? Where I'm from. Gradually, with the self-questioning sentence by sentence, he began to lose control of his emotions. The temperament of peace and serenity disappears. The entire space shook. An indescribable horror. Overflow from the monk's body. It was like hell. Breath made Sue's wife and creepy. The heart beats violently. The young monk regained his composure. The trembling breath converged. He said in a gentle tone that the little monk was in love. My Genshin impact is crippled, so I can't remember the past. I only know my Dharma name, but I can't remember where I came from. What happened before? Xu Qian'an has a crippled primordial spirit. It's because there is only one broken arm. It is also crippled to the body. Therefore, the original God is also incomplete. It makes sense. Monk, you're a little miserable. Xu Qian'an is a treasure hunter. I probably know a little bit of faith. I don't know if it's useful to you. The young monk's breath suddenly fluctuated slightly. Inside the mist, those eyes seemed to be staring at Xu Qian'an. Xu Qian'an continued, your seal formation. It was made by the Dafeng royal family and Si Tianjian. In Western Buddhism, you are a Buddhist. I'm afraid you're from the Western regions. He said as he spoke. I also develop associations. The owner of the severed hand was a monk, and the tripartite forces that sealed him. They are the Dafeng imperial family and the Western regions Buddhism. On Si Tianjian, according to the feedback received from the Blue Dragon Temple. Buddhism obviously attaches more importance to the seals under Sambo. Wait, Xu Qian's eyes lit up suddenly. He remembered several details from Sambo's case. The third day of the bombing of Yangtze Mountain and River Temple. Wei Yuan told him. Emperor Yuan Jing opened the punishment. The day after the Yangtze Mountain and River Temple was blown up. Supervise that bad old man for pretending to be sick. Stand by and watch the whole process. The abbot of Qinglong Temple officially severed his hand from his mouth. Immediately after the accident, he headed west. From these details can be speculated. Buddhism is the leader of Sambo's seal. A young monk who was sealed. 9 times out of 10, he was born in Buddhism. No wonder Emperor Yuan Jing wanted to open the city mirror. No wonder the traitorous politicians are pretending to be sick. It's obvious. More is better than less. It's not your own trouble anyway. And Wei Yuan has repeatedly emphasized. Let him leave the seal Wu alone. Is only responsible for investigating the 2 or 5 boys within the imperial court. 9 times out of 10, Wei Yuan also knew the identity of the severed hand. At least he knew that he came from Buddhism. No wonder the high-level officials in the capital didn't pay attention to the seals. The energy is all about finding out the 2 or 5 boys. All of them are old silver coins. Luckily, I'm smart and witty. Destroy the port through small organs. And Zhou Baihu's shielding forgetting technique. The details were traced to Qinglong Temple. Layers of mystery are revealed. Then the young monk sighed softly. The poor monk wanted to ask the donor for something. Xu Qian's face was sad. Maestro, I'm just a practicing dancer. Xu Qian wanted to refuse tactfully. Wei Yun said, the level of the seal is at least the 2nd or even the 1st grade. This level of struggle. He's a little reptile, and he really doesn't have the confidence to mix. And Xu Qian didn't forget. The original intention of the Golden Lotus Daoists to establish the Heaven and Earth Society. Kill the Earth sect. The difficulty of the second product is in hand. It's only smaller than putting me on the throne as emperor. And if it's because of your business again, it involves the grievances of Buddhism. I might as well usurp the throne myself. The young monk ignored him. Take care of yourself and help the poor monk pursue the past. Get your memories back. In the process, the poor monk will give the donor some help. Sue's wife was relieved. Give a certain boost. He thought of the appearance of the 4 golden gongs wrapped in gauze. If there is a wind seal wood with you, it is equivalent to an extra hole card. He is in this world of imperial power and theocracy. You can live better. At least you don't have to worry about being raided. Who dares to touch a single hair of his family? Just knock out whose brains. But before promising the monks, there are two things to be clarified. Xu Qian'an tried to use as calm as possible. Master, do you need to devour qi and blood from time to time? Uncle Shun's tone was extremely flat. As long as it's in you. There is no need for external qi and blood supplementation. Of course, if you're going to use my powers. Afterwards, it needs to be warmed by blood and blood. It's better to be a practitioner. Xu Qian'an nodded. This equivalent exchange is in line with his philosophy. In other words, as long as you stay in my body, there will be nothing. But if you want to work part-time, I'm going to have to feed you. Xu Qian'an asked again why he chose me. The young monk said, someone brought me to you, because we're one of the same kind of people. Xu Qian'an hurriedly asked, what is a category of people? Please point out the younger generation. The young monk said, I instinctively felt so. More can't remember. The corners of Xu Qian'an's mouth twitched. That's who brought the seniors. The young monk presented a picture. In the picture, a figure dressed in black and wearing a bucket hat. Solemnly open a bag. Include the severed hand. Xu Qian'an frowned, speculating from the body's shape. Apparently a woman. The bag is embroidered with a white animal, shaped like a fox, smart and beautiful, screen like foxtails. Could it be the nine-tailed sky fox? According to the confession of the gray fox in the workshop division, it was the remnants of the 10,000 demon kingdom who participated in the Sambo case, and the fallen empress of the 10,000 demon kingdom. It's the nine-tailed sky fox. Xu Qian'an gasped. It was the people of the 10,000 demon kingdom who brought the severed hand to me. But that's why. Xu Qian'an was deeply worried. They noticed me. Xu Qian'an opened his eyes. Find yourself lying on cold ground. He gently wiped the corners of his mouth. Dried blood remained. Uncle Shun's unreasonable deep roar. The wound is gone. But the immediate question is, what should he do with the severed hand? Do you want to tell Duke Wei about this? Wei Yuan appreciates me very much, yes. But I'm not his own son after all. There is also a limit to appreciation. And this matter involves Sambo's seal. If only he could take it from me. There is no problem with breaking hands. If not, he's going to cover me up, or seal it with me in Sambo. And I'm just a gong of the Qi refining realm. It is impossible not to eat or drink for 500 years without dying. The traitor will definitely be able to take out the severed hand for me. He's a first-class warlock. The problem is that I don't know him well. Xu Qian'an, you have fallen again. Indulged in the warmth of the floating fragrance of Nico, I can't extricate myself. Have you forgotten that Chu Kai Wei is waiting for your strategy? Become Si Tianjin's son-in-law as soon as possible. The traitor is his own people. The traitorous old man knows my odd luck. I can't trust him unreservedly, because he must be plotting something in secret. Since addition, there's also a distant question. The 10,000 demon kingdom painstakingly released the seal. It can't be a wedding dress for me. You know this on your toes. And this purpose is good or bad for me. The monk said that I could warm his arms and spirits. Is it the reason why the 10,000 demon kingdom brought him to me? That will they come to retrieve the severed hand. When the time comes, I will end up dead or alive. No one can say. Then he heard the gentle voice of the monk of the divine book, ringing in the head. The next morning, Xu Qian'an called out in his mind to the master of the Tao divine book. You said last night that I was the same kind of person as you. I just wanted to ask, do you also collect silver every day? It's been a long time. Still no one responded. Xu Qian'an comforted himself. It's a seal after all. Usually it is also sleeping. Go back and try to summon again. If there is still no response, then use my fiery soft glue to warm his cold body. I was barely able to accept it. Xu Qian'an climbed over a 1 zhang high wall. When you go to the main house to eat dates. The moment it landed, something suddenly occurred to him. The black gold long knife was given by the superintendent. The heaven and earth slash was sent by Xu Qian'an. The black gold long knife and the heaven and earth are slashed with one sword. Fit and strong. You know, I've got a weird twist. In the cold breeze of the early morning, Xu Qian shuddered slowly. At this moment, he has a kind of otherworldly routine. I have a sense of urgency to return to Earth. Xu Qian was a little helpless. Let's take it one step at a time. Improve your strength and status first. More on that later. Pack up your emotions. Xu Qian came to the front room. The aunt and the second uncle sat at the dining table to eat. There is also a small bean cube next to it. Xiao, doubting, greeted the eldest brother warmly. You're here, you're done. Quietly put meat buns and fritters, grinding into his arms. Xu Qian had some urge to complain. It's really a plastic brother and sister relationship. As if I'd lie to you about eating. Xu Qian sat down, glancing at the beautiful woman. And he got up so early. The aunt who got up early was in a bad mood. I don't like to take care of my nephew very much. Ling Yu is unwell. I just went to visit. Xu Qian frowned. He is still very interested in the beautiful and refined girl. What's wrong? Annie muttered quietly. Don't want to explain. Matters at the daughter's house. Xu Qian instantly understood. The great aunt is here, but if the eldest aunt comes, I won't let my aunt visit. So it's menstrual cramps. Detective Xu Qian came to a conclusion. Finish breakfast. Xu Qian said that I would visit Lin Yu. At this time, Xiao doubting shouted the cauldron. I'm going to see the cauldron too. My sister has no scheming. Inside Su Lingyue's boudoir. Su Lingyue was lying on the bed. Sideways, delicate eyebrows furrowed. Pretty face is a little pale. Su's wife comforted and said that he had come to Kuai Shui. Have you ever drunk any medicine? Su Lingyue was stunned. Two blushes welled up on his pale face. Shaking her head, the mother said, It's good because of cancer. Xu Qian had a worried look on his face. Menstrual cramps. In this day and age, it is common to have hard cancers. It's not a disease after all. It will be good naturally after a while. I remember if brown sugar ginger tea can cure menstrual cramps. Forget it, go back and find Kai Wei to see the small. Peeweed walked over to the bed. Stretch out your stubby fingers. Smoothing out my sister's frowning brows. Pitifully said that my sister is going to die. Xu Qian was a little speechless. My sister won't die. Su Lining asked in fear what happened to the sister. Xu Qian had a toothache. You little brat. Why do you ask so much? You don't understand menstrual cramps. You don't understand the backwater. Xu Qian pondered for a moment. Explained that my sister is too sensible in plain language. Don't know trick-or-treating, so the body is not comfortable. Wait to become a troublemaker in the future. The stomach will not hurt. Xiao doubting nodded suddenly in understanding. The little face is very serious. I'm going to be a trickster too. This way there will be no stomach pain in the future. Xu Qian comforted the eldest sister. You have a good rest. He left with little doubting. On the way back to the antechamber, Xu Qian didn't pay attention. Little doubting doesn't know where it has gone. After a while, Little Bean Ding walked on his short legs. Dad, I ran back. Xu Qian saw Xiao doubting grabbing a handful of dirt, sneakily hidden in the palm of a small hand. What he wanted to do? Return to the antechamber. The second uncle and aunt were still eating. I saw Xiao doubting climb onto the stool. In front of his parents, threw the black clay into a large pot of porridge. Then he stood on a stool. I let out a sigh of relief. That way he won't have a stomachache. Su Lingyin pinched his waist, waiting for the praise of my father. I'm trick-or-treating. I'm going to do trick-or-treating, not like my sister. Always cause trouble for my parents. Annie's face stiffened. Instantly, I remembered the cockroach incident again. For a while, new hatred and old hatred surged in my heart. Pick up the small bean cubes. Place on your thighs. banging as punching. Little Bean Ding was not convinced, while crying and defending his mother. Why are you hitting me? Annie slaps nonstop greetings. Throw mud into the porridge. You're still so arrogant. Little Doubting cried and complained about what my eldest brother taught me. The eldest brother said that as long as it is good, if you are so mischievous, your stomach will not hurt. Shin Shinlio's eyebrows flashed coldly. There seemed to be a flame in her beautiful eyes. Su Ningyan, what are you calling him nonsense again? Xu Qian'an hurriedly ran away. The weather is so nice today. Second uncle, I'll go to the yamen first. The Lantern Maker's yamen. Dungeon. Xu Qian'an bowed his head and drank tea. Name, age. Master Hingyuan clasped his hands together. I recited a Buddha name. The monk does not speak. Poor monk Hingyuan. Today, Chinese New Year's Eve. Xu Qian'an raised his head and looked at him in surprise. Hingyuan looked at more than 40. It's close to 50. Xu Qian'an asked what kind of cultivation he was doing. Hingyuan replied to the 8-rank warrior monk. Xu Qian'an frowned. Tap your fingers on the tabletop. Don't play tricks on me. An 8-rank warrior monk can break into Pinji Wanbo's mansion at night and kill people. It was easy to seriously injure Tu Gong of the Qi refining realm. He can still walk away without any injuries. Yuan Qindao said that the poor monk was indeed an 8-rank warrior monk. Xu Qian'an was a little embarrassed. He remembered that there was something very strange about the Buddhist practice system. The next rank of the 9-rank novices is the 7th-rank mage. Directly skip the 8-rank warrior monk. Is there a Buddhist system of Buddhism? Since there are 2 systems, why merge together again? Xu Qian'an asked the doubts in his heart. What is the next rank of a warrior monk? Hingyuan shook his head. Qinglong Temple does not have a corresponding mastery. Only Westbound can know. Su Qi's doubts were a little more relieved. Only Westbound can know. Then the Yamen's secret poison storehouse. Most of the time, there is no record of it. Forget it. These are inconsequential little issues. Su Qian said again. Heng Hui has passed away. The bones of the Lord of Bin Duong were also found. Your Majesty issued an edict today. Ping Yuan Bo and Zhang Feng, the Secretary of the Military Department, and the Governor of the Household Department, to Sun Zhongming. The 3 murdered their clan relatives. You can rest assured. Heng Yuan closed his eyes. Recite the Buddha's name in a low voice. At this time, Su Qian said in a deep voice, originally, you were just by chance. Mistakenly entered the case. The light lighter will not hold you accountable. As he spoke, he took out a jade path from his bosom. Throw it on the table with a bang. But should you explain it to the officer? What is this? This jade trail was found from the bottom of the well. It is the number 6 fragment that belongs to Heng Yuan. Heng Yuan's gaze fell on the jade path. This is what he left at the bottom of the well. In the conflict with Heng Hui, accidentally fell out of his arms. Then I listened to Heng Hui's story. Watch him paint. Inner grief. He didn't take into account the fragments of the handing book. Then the watchman came. He knew he was going to go to the dungeon. In case the mirror was raided. Staying at the bottom of the well is the best option. Heng Yuan's plan is to get out if there is a chance. Go and retrieve the fragments of the handed-in book. Or the Golden Lotus Daoist will pick it up for him. Unexpectedly, he ended up in the hands of the watchman. Su Qian stared at Heng Yuan. Wait for his reply. Jade Xiaojing was given to him by Wei Yuan this morning. No other instructions were left, but Su Qian thinks. Wei Yuan meant to pass through his hands. Return the fragment of the book to 6. Su Qian said slowly. This mirror was found at the bottom of the well. Whatever is not yours is Heng Hui's. And his real name is Tissue. Heng Yuan suddenly raised his head. Staring at him, Su Qian smiled. A confident tone. There are many people in the world who know him. But it doesn't include us beating people. Heng Yuan woman lowered her head and whispered. This is exactly what the poor monk is. Su Weifan said. As far as I know, this is the magic weapon of the Dao sect. How can it be in the hands of a monk in you? Heng Yuan replied. Poor monks meet by fate. Obtain this sword weapon. I hope you can return him. Xu Qian'an shook his head. The master himself thinks it's probably more than that. The magic weapon of the Daoist sect. A marriage opportunity can be explained. If you are open and honest and say something useful, the official will let you go. Otherwise, you will have the rest of your life. Just stay in the dungeon of the Tarjan. Heng Yuan was silent for a moment. Get up and leave. Xu Qian'an frowned. Where are you going? Heng Yuan said coldly. The poor monk returns to the dungeon. Xu Qian'an smiled slightly. Number 6 has a good character. There is no betrayal of heaven and earth. Of course, it may also be because he was not punished. But that's not what I want. Come to think of it, Chun Xing Dao is just a magic weapon. That's not all. There is something more precious in the world than freedom. Heng Yuan did not turn back. Please bring back the shackles for the poor monks. Xu Qian'an looked at the clerk who was making the record. Go out first. The clerk packed up the pen and paper and the inkstone, left the interrogation room. Xu Qian'an got up, pulling Heng Yuan's arm. Make a respectful gesture. The tone also turned softer. Master, please be seated. Please sit back at the table in a daze. Adults don't know anything down there. Uncle did get it by chance. Su Chi thought about it with peace of mind. Don't say it's so deadly. The monks don't speak. You'll be embarrassed later. Xu Qian said with a smile. You are the number 6 of the Heaven and Earth Society. Heng Yuan's eyes widened, silent, and fiercely stared at him. The indifferent temperament on his face disappeared without a trace. It seems that as long as Xu Qian reveals it, to be a sign that heaven and earth will be unfavorable. He slapped the child model to death. Lives for lives, Xu Qian lowered his voice, said in a tone of an underground party joint. Under Xu Qian, it was the spy planted by Yunlu Academy in the Yamen of the Guard. The fragment of the handing book was not found by the Yamen. I fished it up from the bottom of the well, and I led someone to find you. And all this was ordered by the number 3 to do it. He's my superior. Heng Yuan fell into a deep shock. He did not immediately deny and doubt the words of the gong in front of him. Because of this moment, he thought of something. Number 3 is a student of Yunlu Academy. He revealed more than once. The news that the academy has placed people in various yamen of the imperial court. As a Confucian Orthodox academy that once ruled the imperial court, this kind of behavior is not normal. After the Sambo case, number 3 was also in the legend of the Heaven and Earth Society. The details of the Sambo case have been mentioned. The Yamen of the Watchman does have spies from Yunlu Academy. But how does the number 3 know where I am? Daoist Jin Lian knows the identity of each and every one of us. Heng He was with me at that time. Daoist Jin Lian will definitely avoid conflict with Heng Hui. Then you have to turn to others for help. And the Watchman was in charge of the Sambo case. There are spies inside the Yamen of the Watchman. Number 3 is the best person to turn to. I owe another life to number 3. Number 3 is worthy of being a reader, chivalrous and courageous, a trustworthy friend. I am afraid that this cause and effect will not be able to be repaid in the future. Come to think of it, Heng Yuan took a deep breath. Looking at Xu Qian's gaze, there was no guardedness or hostility. What else did the third say? Xu Qian said with a smile. He said that spring was in danger, unable to leave Yunlu Academy. If you encounter similar trouble in the future, it is likely that the rescue will not be good. So let the official be in touch with the big things. What do you need help with in the future? Feel free to come to me. After speaking, I added a sentence in my heart. What is the need? I can find you too. And it won't reveal the identity of number 3. At least not in the short term. He didn't want to expose himself for the time being. First, the force grid erected before coming was a bit pompous. The members of the Heaven and Earth Society all felt. He is the top elite of Yunlu Academy. He is a talented man who learns to be rich and rich. It was found. Number 3 is obviously just a gong. And Yuan nodded. In the future, if there are adults who need the help of poor monks. Despite the opening, Xu Qian'an smiled and led him out of prison. Master, I'll take you out. Send Hing Yuan away. Xu Qian'an returned to Chunfeng Hall. I just saw Li Yuchen packing up his things. Every ornament must be neat and tidy. Xu Qian'an smiled. I'll help you, Li Yuchen hurriedly shouted to stop. Don't touch me myself. It's enough for me to come on my own. Xu Qian'an is also happy to be idle. Wait until the case is over. Let's go to the bar in coffins. I'm going to invite you. Li Yuchen hesitated. It's called font. Xu Qian'an discovered Huadiyantu. You won't be called Lance before. This era, a man of status, and status has never been to a place called Lance. Its rarity is like Xu Qian'an. The female doctor in the previous life was still a cook. The 30-year-old male doctor never pretends to be forced by hand. All are rare in the world. Li Yuchen shook his head and said where the miasma was. What is there to go? The 3 samurai of the day were beheaded. Go onlookers. Xu Qian'an hurriedly shook his head. I can't stand that scene if I don't go. Li Yuchen cast a puzzled look. The beheading is in Dafeng. It's so normal. Not to mention the investigation. A group of officials were dragged to the entrance of the vegetable market and beheaded. It is those death row prisoners who were beheaded after the autumn. It's enough for the people to come back to life. The second time is cooked, and the third time is eaten while watching. No psychological pressure. Xu Qian'an said, I won't go anyway. Hundreds of people beheaded the scene for him. The impact is still too strong. I won't be able to sleep. 50 of the vegetable market entrance. There were more than 100 people kneeling on the execution platform. The officer on duty looked at the ghost. Cast the order to move. Death comes. Zhang Feng's relatives scolded one after another. Angrily scolded Zhang Feng, the secretary of the Ministry of War, for harming others and himself. Ghost won't let him go. The executioner holds a butcher's knife aloft. Heads are rolling down. The blood splattered was very exaggerated. The strong smell of blood could even be smelled by the people on the periphery. After that, 2 more groups of condemned prisoners were beheaded. They are the families of Ping Yuanbua and Sun Zhongming. Finally, the main culprit in this case, Zhang Feng and Pinji Wanbo, and Sun Zhongming. Heng Yuan, who was standing outside the crowd, silently turned to leave. He came to watch the execution scene. There are 2 reasons for this. The first is to replace the junior and younger brothers. Benefit but cause and effect. Therefore, let's see the beheading of the enemy. The second is to calm one's own obsessions. Avoid future demons. Heng Hui is the younger brother he brought up. Like a disciple, like a son. 1 report and 1 report. This is the end of the matter. The side hall of Chunfeng Hall. Xu Qian'an spit out Lian Qi, while summoning the divine book. Master of the divine book, are you awake? But after a long time, still didn't get a reply from the monk. He seemed to be able to sense his own thoughts. It's Buddhism, and his heart is clear. He can't read memories. Anyway, he spends most of his time asleep. That's a good thing. Xu Qian'an was thinking. I was thrilled. When Xu Qian'an opened his eyes, I saw that the 2 colleagues were closing their eyes and spitting. He took out the jade path with peace of mind, browsed the biography. Heng Yuan said everyone. I'm thankful for that. Number 5 was the first to question number 6. Is it really number 6? Could it be a pretending to be a watchman? Number 4 said that if it was false. Daoist Jin Lian had already warned us in advance. Number 5, what you should be thinking about is, number 6 has not been beaten and rebelled. Xu Qian'an sighed twice. Number 4 is worthy of being a scholar. And he was a big official. Sharp-minded. Number 5 asked about number 6. Have you been rebelled? Heng Yuan replied to the poor monk, very well. Poor monk. I want to thank number 3 and the Golden Lotus Daoists for their rescue. Daoist Jin Lian said that there was no need to thank him. Your brother has no intention of killing you. At this time, Number 4 directly asked how the Sambo case was progressing. Xu Qian'an saw this. Waited for a moment. I didn't wait for the transmission of the first. So the information Sambo case is over. But it's not over. The real purpose of the Sambo case. It is to lead to the Bin Duong County main case. Hung will make a big fuss about the evil wind parrots. The inner city is destroyed. Pingyuan Bofu is the best proof of this. It's noon today. 3 of the officials involved. The 3 suspected tribes were beheaded at the entrance of the vegetable market. The case of the Lord of Bin Duong has ended. The purpose of the main messenger behind the scenes has been achieved. They are next. Most of them will leave the capital with the seal. This turmoil is over. But the Sambo case itself is not over. Number 5 suddenly realized, I see. Then he was stabbed number 3 coldly. Number 3, you are a big liar. The man who picks up money every day. It's you. Xu Qian'an was taken aback. The heart says when I lied to someone. Really deception. That is the character of Yunlu Academy. Could it be that my human setting has collapsed without realizing it? It doesn't make sense. And it shouldn't be the 5th. This sentence. It is reasonable for number 1 or number 6 to accuse. How? It's not the turn of a chick who is far away in southern Xinjiang to speak. The first wave of analysis began on the 4th. Number 3 is a liar. He is the one who finds the money. How did number 5 know about this? They were in transit. There wasn't much communication. Other words, number 5 is from a certain statement in the past. Figured out the flaw of number 3. No, if there is any flaw, it is also perceived by other people. And not number 5. Number 2 is envious, jealous, hateful. I really envy number 3. I can go out every day to pick up money. The old lady is about to lose her military salary. Monk and Yuan didn't know what to do for a while. It turns out that it is the number 3 who picks up money every day. If a poor monk can pick up money every day, we will be able to save more people who are suffering. Number 1 smiled, but did not say anything. Silent peeping. At this moment, the Golden Lotus Dao Chief is lazily lying on the roof ridge basking in the sun. Xu Qian'an pouted. Relieved, yes. I'm a liar. And yet this kind of thing, it doesn't matter if you cheat or not, okay? For example, Nicholas Song often said that I have a friend. Not in good health? Everybody knows that. It's him. But does anyone accuse him of deceiving? At this time, the 4th opened the second wave of analysis. The one who picked up the silver was the number 3 deity. Who could pick up money so abnormally? I don't remember the Confucian system of Yunlu Academy. There is such a miracle. Number 4 already had something in mind. Probably rushed to transfer. Number 3, when did you have this phenomenon? Xu Qian'an hesitated slightly. About a little over a month ago. He deliberately shortened the time, lest anyone in the future be based on this. It was discovered that he had an anomaly after the tax prostitution case was over. Number 4's heart was pounding. More than a month ago, if memory serves, the relatives of Yunlu Academy rushed to the sky. It also happened a little more than a month ago. At that time, number 3 had not yet joined the Heaven and Earth Society. The Golden Lotus Daoist solemnly was inside the Heaven and Earth Society. Investigation number 1 was commissioned. As everyone knows, number 3 is a student of the Confucian Academy. But one thing is extremely unusual. That is, the strength of number 3 is not strong. But they got too much resource tilt. I know too many secrets that the high-level officials of Yunlu Academy know. This is very unreasonable. Number 4, as a former reader, I have long sensed that something is wrong with this. It's not that the identity of number 3 Yunlu Academy is questioned. Instead, I felt that his treatment was a bit exaggerated. But if number 3 has something to do with the hydrogen cancellation of Yunlu Academy, then it has been valued by the senior management of Yunlu Academy. Isn't that reasonable? But what is the connection between picking up silver and hydrogen offset? Number 4 didn't figure it out. It seems that I have to take the time to go back to the capital. Visit Dinjiao, the curious building of the lantern maker's yamen. Xu Qian'an stepped forward. He gave a salute. Wei Yuan nodded faintly. Sit down. Xu Qian'an sat down obediently. Pick up the teacup. Take a sip. Dad Wei is looking for me. It should be for the case of the county lord of Binduan. Really? At this time, Wei Yuan said lightly, the main case of Pingyang County is over. But the drug case has to continue. Your Majesty rejected my proposal. Xu Qian's face sank. What has to go on is the meaning. Unable to solve the case. He will still be beheaded. Xu Qian said. Sun Shangshu of the Criminal Department and Zhou Xianping, the waiter of the Household Department, have the word to save. He hated me from the beginning. Wei Yuan waved his hand. Interrupted him. It's all trifles. Your Majesty doesn't like you. That's the big deal. Xu Qian suddenly felt annoyed. It hurts so much. I don't like him either. When I first worshipped my ancestors, see Emperor Yuan Jing in Taoist robes, there was a faint disgust in my heart. At that time, I thought it was because the other party represented the feudal imperial power. Later, he experienced the Ling Long incident. After close contact, I found that my dislike for Emperor Yuan Jing was pure. There is no other reason. It's a hate from the bottom of my heart. Maybe I'm in conflict with the old emperor. I'm Shino. He is Wei Yang. Come to think of it, Xu Qian said. I don't know where to annoy your Majesty. Wei Yuan sighed. Maybe it's not an eye. You can wait with peace of mind. You don't have to look it up. Today, all traces have been erased. You can't find anything. The time limit has passed. Your Majesty is going to behead you. I will arrange for a death row inmate to take your place. Rest assured that no one will pay attention to you. The identity of a small gong. Su Qi was very unhappy in his heart. And then I made sense. Has become your unsightly subordinate. Xu Qian said in a deep voice. What if Zhou Qixiong can be caught? Wei Yuan glanced at him in slight surprise. If only you could catch him. The matter is even. But to do it, it's easier said than done. Xu Qian left Haoqi building. Returned to Chunfeng Hall. I told a few good friends about it. Song Tingfeng's face became extremely ugly. The swear words are marked sentence by sentence without repetition. Li Yuchen said that Pingyang County was in charge. Too much time was wasted. It's hard to get to the bottom of the funeral case. 4 Heavenly Swords Peak Season Book. It is not possible to charge officials with more than 4 draws. Unless you can call for a warrant. Xu Qian also felt that it was very difficult. Find a supervisor. Not to mention whether the old man is willing to help or not. Even if you want to, is it true to be rigorous? I'm not going to look for that bad old man. This side of the stargazing tower. Xu Qian licked the dog smile on his face. Handed the stone box to Sister Kaiwei. I have something to see the superintendent. Is there any way you can take me to the gossip platform? Chu Kaiwei was drooling. Keep an eye on the food in the stone box. I'm afraid that it will disappear in the next second. But the master who said no, he was in retreat, has entered the passage of the gossip platform. No one can go up. After talking about a lot of delicacies in the stone box. Put in your mouth. Xu Qian was a little speechless. Can't you eat slowly? But now he cares more about his own life. Hurriedly said, is there no way? When will our master come out of the customs? Chu Kaiwei glanced at him. What does the heart say is called our master? He suppressed the displeasure in his heart. After thinking about it, it will take a few months. As short as half a month. I guess it's a deduction of astrological phenomena on the gossip platform. Xu Qian almost vomited a mouthful of cold blood. This is retribution. I prostitute myself for nothing. Finally, one day, let someone else prostitute it for nothing. Xu Qian gritted his teeth. Can't afford to lose like that. Then he licked his face and said that the girl in the house is here. Kai Sui, do you have a way? Chu Kaiwei listened. Took out a porcelain vase. Take 1 capsule when it hurts. The results are immediate. Xu Qian'an took the porcelain vase. There was also a little more comfort in my heart. This girl is a glutton, but when I look for her, I am also very generous. But medicine doesn't matter if it's expensive or not. They are all willing to give away. Thousands of miles away in Yunzhou. The bandits in Yunzhou are serious. There are countless bandits and mountain bandits who rob homes and houses. The people have been in trouble for a long time. The government has also had a headache for decades. There is a stockade here, built on the hill. The terrain is easy to defend and difficult to attack. When the village was first built, the government will also send troops to encircle and suppress it. After a few defeats, he turned a blind eye and didn't care. As soon as the night came, the mountain wind blew fiercely. Soon after, lightning and thunder roared. It was pouring rain. See the mountain bandits standing guard upstairs. And he said, "Have you heard? Today there is another big vote in the stockade. Loot the caravan. There are also many valuables such as silk, tea, and porcelain. It's all thanks to the newcomer in the cottage. Martial arts are outstanding and proficient in the art of combos. Soldier training is even more hands-on. It is said that he was born in the military. I used to work in Dafeng capital city. Later, because he couldn't get used to the mediocrity and corruption of the imperial court. Fortunately, the grass fell into the grass. At this time, there should be a celebration banquet in the village. The city is full of charcoal fires. The 6 bosses and some minor bosses are eating and drinking, talking about vulgar marriages, looking at those who were taken captive to the woman surnamed Su. Xu Qian'an, who was in mind for 7 peace of mind, was also among them. Xu Qian'an chose to fall into the grass as the queen. Wife and son did not bring the cottage. Instead, it was arranged in the largest white emperor city in Yunzhou. It is one of the few happy lands in Yunzhou. Don't worry about bandits and thieves. At this time, the big boss smiled and said to Emperor Xu Qian'an, "Is it that the women here are not to your liking? I've heard." This time, there was a beautiful lady in the caravan. He was also kept in a firewood room. A bandit said, "Yes, the big boss. That thief is pretty." Another cottage added a sentence of big boss. The women in the stockade are compared to him. It's simply the difference between mud and sugar. The big boss laughed heartily. "Bring the woman up. Tonight, let the 6 masters dispose of it. For he robbed it, and he should have opened the meat first." After a while, a woman was brought up. The woman's skin was better than snow. There are no flaws in the facial features. The eyes are large and bright. He was a little scared. It's as timid as a forest path. The surroundings were quiet all at once. Xu Qian'an even rolled his Adam's apple. An inexplicable evil fire instantly spread all over the body. The woman said timidly, "Which master of the slave family's clothes?" Xu Qian'an stepped forward directly and took him into his arms. Hungry to touch and gnaw. "Woman." The posture of the little woman revealed under the panic is even more. It made Xu Qian'an want to stop. "I can't punish him on the spot." At this time, the woman's gentle voice sounded in his ears. "Are you Xu Qian'an?" Xu Qian'an chuckled in his heart. The desire vanished suddenly. "He knows my name?" Meanwhile, he found the beauty in his arms. His face gradually turned pale. In an instant, it lost its vitality. And what's even weirder, he took on the form of a human-sized paper figure, slowly floated down. The woman's shrill laughter echoed through the room. "Give somebody the creeps." The candle flame in the house was also abruptly extinguished at this time. The big boss scrambled out of his seat. "Who dares to pretend to be a ghost here?" Xu Qian'an said. "It's a sister, also known as a ghost. Practically no combat power, but he is good at seducing with beauty." The shock of the hooker on the suction rod. That's when it happened. The sound of drums resounded throughout the cottage. Outside, there was the sound of mountain bandits shouting and attacking. At the same time, there was a shrill laugh in the air. It was arrows. Mountain bandits continued to fall to the ground with arrows. Screams rang out one after another. The big boss shouted angrily, preparing for the rolling stone and Tong Yong. But his voice fell. Silver light streaked across the night sky. The big boss secretly scolded a few words of national quintessence. These swordsmen are not very powerful. But now it's night. Visibility is limited. If you're not careful, you'll get hit. At this point, the lightning tries to swipe through. The bandits below. I saw a figure standing on top of a silver spear. He wears a scale fake suit. Behind him is a bright red cape. Without a helmet, he looks very heroic, like an awe-inspiring goddess of war. The female god of war is determined by hand. A thunderbolt struck down with a loud bang. 2 arrow towers in front of the cottage collapsed with a bang. The bandits were even blown away 7 or 8 meters. They fell to the ground one after another, not knowing whether they were alive or dead. At this time, Xu Qian'an's heart was half cold. The whole person is like falling into an ice cellar. Solid this spell. This is the thunder of the Daomen. The absolute warrior personally led the team. It only took an hour. The cottage was breached. The size of this team is not large, though, but none of them are weak. The lowest is also refining strength. There are more than 50 people refining chi. There are also more than 10 refining gods. Copper skin and iron strength 4. And the head of this female god of war. Cultivation is even more unfathomable. Such an army is to fight the White Emperor city. It's enough for the largest city in Yunzhou to drink a pot. The big boss Qin Qingdao has no flag. Combat power is superb. Led by a woman. Are you the swift woman? The female warrior frowned. Angry said something. The swift woman. It's hard to hear. At this time, the sister said coquettishly, Master. The slave family is okay. The goddess of war nodded. A word of compliment. The arraignment was timely. My sister said shyly, Can you give someone a man? The slaves have been hungry for many days. The female god of war said in her heart that Emperor Yuanjing would send you. Go and drain him. Still, he nodded slightly. You pick a few bandits. At this time, the big boss is already certain. This goddess of war is the legendary Swift Woman. Previous years, a chivalrous and courageous woman suddenly appeared on the rivers and lakes. Everywhere the woman goes, justice is supported. Skill is maintained. Just a few years, became famous in the rivers and lakes. Become a hero that everyone knows. Because of its urgency and righteousness. Known as the Flying Swallow Woman. At the beginning of this year, the woman came to Yunzhou. Seeing that bandits were rampant in Yunzhou, the people were miserable. Recruit immediately. A private army was created, began a tireless journey to suppress bandits. It has received the full support of the political envoy of the Ministry of Yunzhou. The cold voice of the female god of war came, and I asked you to answer. It's going to make your death a little more painful. Otherwise, you will be trained to become a fierce ghost warrior. Do not give birth to more than one child. The big boss snorted coldly. He decided to give it a hard shot. You don't think the displeasure on the female warrior's face flashes away. Followed by a flash of fluorescence whirled. Pierced the heavenly spirit cover of the great master. Red and white things splashed backwards. The goddess of war put away her gun. Said coldly, you like to say it or not. Xu Qian'an was so frightened that his legs went limp. He said to himself, you can't do that. Don't you see that he's bargaining? At least give me a chance. The warriors on the side. It seems that he has long been accustomed to the style of the female god of war. They were all smiling and watching the excitement. At this time, Xu Qian'an felt that the female god of war was not emotional. Glancing at himself, he immediately cried out for mercy. The heroine spares her life. I'll say everything, the goddess of war sneered. I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to send you to meet someone. Xu Qian's yard. He was vomiting well on the bed. Suddenly, my heart was excited. Message came from the fragments of the handing book. Xu Qian'an monkey hurriedly touched out the bathroom path. A message came from the second. Number 3 Zhou Qixiong has been caught. I'll send someone to the capital tomorrow. Xu Qian's pupil shrank. There was a look of disbelief on his face. Zhou Qixiong caught it. It's terrible efficiency. Number 2 is simply my white moonlight. Loved. Becoming a case of Wei Yuan is the worst option. And at the moment, I'm just practicing the odd sword. Stay in the capital. Stay in the yamen of the watchman. Whether it's resources or living environment, it's much better than wandering the world. If life can be peaceful and joyful, who wants to be displaced? If you leave the second uncle and aunt and Erlang sister, it's too lonely. Xu Qian replied, can you get to the capital within 6 days? Number 2 said, take the words of fire and beast. It took 6 days to arrive, but you have to pay me 300 taels of silver. I can't let my brother run for nothing. You'll have to pay for the cost of the road. Xu Qian decisively agreed. His own life is 300 taels. He still knows how to choose. After all, he died. The biggest thing is that the money is not spent yet. Sad. After speaking, Xu Qian groaned. Zhou Qixiong definitely couldn't be sent directly into the capital. The water in the capital is too deep. Once Zhou Qixiong entered Beijing, it will definitely be discovered by those who have a heart. After all, he is now wanted by the imperial court, listed as a first-class trafficker. Now there are 2 options. Either notify Wei Yuan in advance, or find another way to let Zhou Qixiong enter Beijing. Xu Qian thought for a moment. Dad Wei is certainly powerful, but I have a better idea. Xu Qian sent message number 2. I beg you to send Zhou Qixiong to Yunlu Academy. Someone will take over. Zhou Qixiong involved the court bosses. Beware of them jumping off the wall. The lantern maker's yamen is full of martial artists. Not enough bells and whistles. The great Confucianism of Yunlu Academy has the ability to move forward. It is the best person to escort the prisoners. Suffice it to say no. Within 3 feet is the capital, but most of the palace is inaccessible. Otherwise, it would be too easy for the Confucians to cut the head of Emperor Yuan Jing. Su wife and secretly decided, I'll go to Yunlu Academy tomorrow. Visited 3 of my teachers, and the members of the Heaven and Earth Society who were peeping at the screen at this moment. They weren't surprised at all. Number 3 was originally a student of Yunlu Academy. Time passed. During this time, Su's wife ran in many ways. Visited 3 of my teachers. I met Princess Huaiqing and Princess Biao Biao. I hope the 2 can intercede for themselves. The table is holding a princess shelf, but it's still very refreshing. Agreed to Su wife's request. Princess Huaiqing is more rational and objective. To put it bluntly, my father doesn't seem to like you. This palace will save you from capital crimes. But there is no escaping the sin. But strangely, Princess Huaiqing versus Sambo case shows an unreasonable indifference. I was also at peace with the fate that was about to befall me. It doesn't seem to take it to heart at all. 5 days passed in a blink of an eye. The day before the Samboan deadline, Wei Yuan sent someone to summon Xu Qian to the 7th floor. Wei Yuanshan said, I just received news from the palace. Your Majesty will have an early pilgrimage tomorrow. Inevitably, there will be a mention of Samboan. I will try to keep you in the yamen, instead of the government and the criminal department. At this time, Xu Qian smiled and said with a smile to Wei Gong, I've already caught Zhou Qixiong. Wei Yuan's expression froze. He looked at him without saying a word. The next day is the final day of the Samboan investigation deadline. It's the end of the day. Xu Qian drove the carriage into the imperial city. Here it is. Xu Qian was relieved. Throw your fists at the helpers, thank you. Samber's case was concluded today. He wants to put an end to the Samber case. Draw an end to the conflict between the sword and the Yama. Inside the Golden Luang Palace, after the normal pairing, Emperor Yuan Jing said lightly that there could be progress in the Sambo case. The Ministry of Rights is still in the ranks, and the voice is loud and looks at His Majesty. I hope that Duke Wei will return the official to justice. Wei Yuan came out of the ranks. Return to your Majesty. Sambo's case has come to light. The moment the words fell, Ma Ransheng also instantly resounded in the Jinluan Palace. Squinting rigorously, who was the main messenger of Qin Dao, Wei Yuan's face was covered with his signature gentle smile. It doesn't make sense for the minister to say it. His Majesty can summon Yuan Jin fearlessly to protect Zhou Qixiong. The Ministry of Right Shangshu sneered and said that Zhou Qixiong had already fled the capital. How to summon? Wei Yuan stared at him with a smile. Zhou Qixiong was outside the palace. Please summon your Majesty. And at this time, outside the Jinluan Palace, 3 golden gong and a Confucian of Yunlu Academy accompany Xu Qian'an to escort a carriage. Slowly enter the imperial city. The man in the carriage was tied like a rice dumpling. It was Samboan's key Zhou Qixiong. Zhou Qixiong is still in a coma, for fear that he would kill himself. Xu Qian'an finds Kai Wei. I asked for a large dose of the drug. The reason why Yunlu Academy was chosen to take over this person, instead of putting him in the fragments of the Emperor's book. The first person is the divine refining mirror. The rank is higher than that of Xu Qian'an, so he didn't dare to take risks. The second is the fragment of the Emperor's book. The existence is a secret. You can't do it in a big way. No one can enter the Golden Luan Palace in front of the Emperor and the ministers of the court. Take out the fragments of the Emperor's book. Besides, he now has plenty of connections. Try not to use it if you can. Emperor Xu waited a little bored Xu Qian'an, and Senior Brother Song started a family routine. Senior Brother Song Miriam Yang. He was the first disciple of the governor. Song Qingdan said, "He's my brother and Saiwei's brother." The third disciple of the teacher. "My brother has a brain problem." Xu Qian'an attached a sentence. Disciple of the traitorous government. Is there a normal brain? Xu Qian'an attached his hands behind him, imitated Miriam Yang's standing posture. Song Qing nodded angrily. Yes, he always likes to talk with his back to people. I don't talk well. The brothers and sisters were very annoyed with him. He is not ashamed of himself. Anti-complacent. Xu Qian'an was puzzled. Here's why. Song Qing said helplessly. He said that he had to turn his back on all beings. Fong shows a superior demeanor. Xu Qian'an got a little closer. Said Senior Brother Song, "You help me bring him a message." Song Qing muttered, "Say it." Xu Qian'an laughed twice. Muttered in his ear, holding the moon and picking the stars. There is no such person as me in the world. At this time, Yang Yin and Jiang Luzhong moved. Subconsciously turned his head to look at it. At the same time, a very unhappy feeling rose in my heart. This son is so arrogant. Song Qing was a little stunned. Such crazy words. Senior Brother Yang will definitely like it. But it's nonsense everywhere. He's going to be beaten. It is conceivable that he will be beaten. Song Qing was immediately interested. Nodding happily, he said by all means. Between words, a eunuch led a column of armored soldiers out. At the gate of Miyagi, he said loudly where the watchman was. Summoned by His Majesty. Xu Qian'an said, "Father-in-law, please wait a moment." Yang Yin immediately lifted the curtain. Carry Zhou Qixiong in his hand. The eunuch asked who this was. Xu Qian'an replied that it was wanted to commit Zhou Qixiong. The eunuch seemed very interested in how. There are also sacks. Let's take a look. Jiang Yuzhong immediately took 2 steps forward to block it. Shaking his head, he said before seeing His Majesty, "No one is allowed to come into contact with the offender." The eunuch frowned. Qin Dao said before meeting His Majesty, "Identification is required." How do we know? This person is not a scheming person. Disguised as Zhou Qixiong and infiltrated the palace in a vain attempt to assassinate His Majesty. Our family now suspects the identity of this person. Verify your identity. Xu Qian's face sank. There is a good reason for this. There was nothing wrong with it. Just raised it in this matter. He knows a lot of ways to make people die silently. I believe that the two golden gongs know better. And as a martial artist, most of them are not able to stop it. Takeo is good at the output of violence. If Zhou Qixiong died silently in a coma, this Guishui cup will definitely not be the Gong Luo in front of him. Because the identity of Yin Naruto is a prisoner, it is a normal process. This father-in-law has a faction. Most of them belong to the party of the Ministry of Rights. Come to think of it, Xu Qian smiled and said to his father-in-law, I turned back to see your majesty. I would say that my father-in-law tried to kill Zhou Qixiong. My father-in-law was furious several times, and you dare to slander our family. Someone came and arrested him. Xu Qian said coldly, Father-in-law, you figured it out. There's really going to be a conflict here. Your majesty is not a fool. The court Zhu Gong is not a fool. Have you weighed the consequences? The eunuch sneered at the yellow-haired boy. Have you ever thought about the consequences? Xu Qian did not give in. Father-in-law, don't play tricks with outlaws like me. Not cost-effective. The father-in-law just does his best for others. He took 2 steps forward, approached the eunuch's ear, whispered, You are not a core member of the dead party. Don't let my eunuch's face change for a moment. Turned around and snorted coldly. We don't have the same knowledge as you. Don't keep your majesty waiting. Soon after, a eunuch went to Jinluan. The temple said, Emperor Yuan Jing summoned Xu Qian and his party into the palace. Xu Qian saw it again. This group of people who stand at the pinnacle of Daebong's power. Especially the one who was wearing a dragon robe. A majestic middle-aged man who lives high in the dragon seat. Xu Qian was a little nervous. Daebong's full strength. The heart of the stage. He slowly suppressed the apprehension of the little ones. At this time, Wei Yun's gentle gaze fell on Xu Qian's face. Slightly sweaty hands. At this time, Xu Qian was not afraid. Reach for the sack and remove it. A few more acupuncture points on Zhou Qixiong's body. Zhou Baihu groaned a few times in pain. Then slowly opened his eyes. Xu Qian is neither humble nor arrogant, and says, Your Majesty. This is Yuan Jinwu, a key criminal wanted by the imperial court, to protect Zhou Qixiong. Zhou Qixiong was already stunned at this time. How did you open your eyes and see Emperor Yuan Jing? There are also courts on both sides. What's going on with Zhu Gong? Am I dreaming? At this time, Xu Qian slapped it. The Sun Thief returned to his hometown. Only then did Zhou Qixiang confirm that he was not dreaming. Instead, he really came to the Daebong Palace. Emperor Yan Jing's face was serious. Condescending gaze at Zhou Qixiong. Who instructed you to collude with the demon clan? Smuggling gunpowder. At this time, Zhou Qixiong only knew that he was crying and drunk. He didn't hear what Emperor Yuan Jing was saying at all. A look of displeasure flashed across Emperor Yuan Jing's face. He no longer looked at the ant. Instead, he stared at Zhang Shun. Gently, Mr. Zhang was tired. Zhang Shun snorted coldly. Hands behind the abdomen stepped out. Mouth with antenna. The same is true for a gentleman to be a husband. An invisible breeze blew through Zhou Qixiong. In a flash, his mind was occupied by the word honesty. Zhang Shun said coldly, Who instructed you to collude with the demon clan? Smuggling gunpowder. Zhou Qixiong's face was covered with fine beads of sweat. He's still struggling with the honesty in his heart. But his mouth seemed to be disobedient. It is Li Yulong, the secretary of the Ministry of Rights. Stand up and speak. Your Majesty, this is absurd. Zhou Qixiong slandered Song Qing. A cold and direct interruption. Zhou Baihu did not lie. Chu Caiwei's repeater on the side generally didn't lie. The Ministry of Rights Shangshu's face turned pale. He knew he had no point in justifying. Emperor Yuan Jing didn't look at it. His eyes were cold, and he looked at the Book of Rights. It's like looking at a corpse. Wei Yuan, immediately said to your majesty, "Please hand it over to the ministers for interrogation." This treatment was found to be in the same party. The book of the criminal department was then listed. Your majesty's case should be handed over to the criminal department. Emperor Yuan Jing did not answer, silently overlooking Zhu Zigui of the Manchu dynasty. The ministers couldn't help but stop the discussion. "It's been a long time." Emperor Yuan Jing said loudly that the case would be handled by the criminal department. Scattered backwards, the book of the Ministry of Rights, that was stripped of his official robe and hat, was pressed to leave the palace. At this time, Xu Qian'an chased after him and stayed. "What happened in the court a few days ago? I heard what Wei Gong said. If your royal party had settled earlier, it wouldn't be where it is today." This scene was seen by Yang Yin in the distance. "Do you want to call him back?" Wei Yuan shook his head. It was inevitable that he would have resentment. "If you don't vent at this time, wait for when. You stare at him and don't want him to crush the conflict." Speaking of this, Wei Yuan smiled gently. "I also want to see what he says." Sun Shangshu of the criminal department said disdainfully. Panicked. "Here's a big deal." Xu Qian'an was not angry at all. The two Shangshu can know that they are quite talented. Loosen one's tongue. I don't dare to just give Sun Shangshu and Li Shangshu a poem. The name of the poem is Samboan. Gift to Sun Shangshu. Sun Shangshu's face turned pale, although he had long heard that this son was quite poetic. "Everything you do is a must. But why do you have a bad premonition now?" The surrounding ministers also joined in the fun. "It's not a big deal. It is not taboo either." Sun Shangshu's face surged over. Wei Yuan's eyes lit up slightly. This little rabbit is going to compose a poem. He strode over. "Go and listen as long as he is not a young teacher. Only be a tripper master. I won't kill him." Sun Shangshu's face changed. "This Xu Qian'an wants to give me a poem." There was always a bad premonition in his heart. Immediately afterwards, he saw Xu Qian'an coughing. Then he said loudly, "Everyone has adopted children, and they want to be smart. I've been mistaken by being clever all my life. May the child be in Jilu." No disaster to the minister. Wei Yuan gasped when he heard this. The meaning of the poem, "People who do things feel that they are too smart," was delayed for a lifetime. If you are a stupid person, you will be able to become a minister without disaster. This was when satirizing the Manchu civil and military forces and the princes and ministers. Brainless idiot. The surrounding officials looked at each other. Don't mention how weird the face is. They came to see Sun Shangshu's jokes. Coldly, Xu Qian'an was stabbed. Sun Shangshu even gritted his teeth and glared at Xu Qian'an. "He's making fun of me for being stupid." Sarcasm. I shot myself in the foot. He wanted to nail my name to the pillar of shame. Xu Qian'an looked at Sun Shangshu indifferently. Of course, he understood Sun Shangshu's anger. The noblest pursuit of a scholar is to go down in history. This is more appealing to them than teaching and educating people. But the same, how eager they are to go down in history. How afraid of leaving a stench for 10,000 years. How can this endure? It's unbearable. Sun Shangshu could no longer suppress the anger in her heart. Someone came and took this treatment for me. At this time, Wei Yuan walked over unhurriedly, in front of Xu Qian'an. With a calm face, he arched his hand towards Sun Shangshu. Master Sun was angry. Chun Xingdao, the secretary of the criminal department, said Wei Yuan. This Sun slandered his official in public, insulting a book. Exile according to the law. Even today is you. I don't want to keep him. Wei Yuan smiled gently. It is indeed a great sin to slander Shangshu. But let's be honest. It's not slander. Sun Shangshu's body shook. Trembling pointed at Wei Yuan. I was so angry for a while. Speechless. Wei Yuan smiled, turned around, and took Xu Qian'an away. But he had only taken a few steps. It stopped again, turned around, and shouted congratulations to Sun Shangshu, famous all over the world. such as Lin Yangming. Sun Shanshu heard this. I shuddered. I didn't get over it in one breath. Straight and fainted. Returned to the yamen. Xu Qian followed Wei Yuan into the Haoqi building. Xu Qian asked Gong Wei for advice. There are a few things I don't understand. Wei Yuan said lightly. Why did His Majesty let the criminal department try this case? Xu Qian immediately gave a shot of his talent in the world. Once Wei Gong got 8 buckets alone. I share a fight with Yunlu Academy. In the anxiety on the sidelines. After hearing this, he directly squirted out a sip of tea. Wei Yuan comfortably took this wave of sycophants. The Ministry of Rights was a member of the royal party. If it is handed over to the yamen of the watchman to save it, a large number of members of the royal party will be implicated. Xu Qian instantly understood. At that time, the party in the court will be unbalanced. One is the only one, or two is the same. It's not what Emperor Yuan Jing wants to see. This hindered his ability to control the situation in the court, especially if he has been cultivating all year round. Even if the royal party colludes with the demon clan, blew up Sambo, blew up the law of the ancestors. But compared to their own power, what is the ancestor? Emperor Yuan Jing is a faint monarch in Xu Qian's eyes, because he is the emperor, but he only has his own rights and status in his eyes. Now the chaotic situation of partisan struggle in the court. In fact, it was all caused by Emperor Yuan Jing. He cultivated and ignored the government. So there needs to be a chaotic court situation to solidify your position. Otherwise, it is easy to be overhead. Xu Qian thought for a moment. And one more thing. I can't figure it out. Why didn't the Ministry of Right Shangshu kill Zhou Qishiong? Wei Yuan shook his head. Don't worry about these small problems. The Samber case has come to an end. Your Majesty didn't mention anything about you. It means that this matter has been taken over. Xu Qian is sincere. Laughed. I intend to ask my colleagues who will cooperate with me in the investigation. Go to the suburban temple for a drink. But there was no money. Please ask Wei Gong to allocate funds. Wei Yuan glared at him. Then he said in a deep voice, get out of here. After Xu Qian fled in disgrace. Wei Yuan pondered for a moment and then said Yang Yi. Give him 200 taels of silver. It is a reward from the yamen. After saying that, you can add that you two can go together. Zhang Lu's Hong shook his head again and again. I'm not going. This kind of place is the church division. Wei Yuan didn't force it. Rather, it is faint. He was present. I guess there will be a lot of Oren with me. Night falls. The workshop division is brightly lit. The voice of the director of music echoed melodiously. Yang Yin and Li Yuchen sighed. There is a charming Oren to accompany the wine. It's just that both of them seem quite restrained. It doesn't look like he's here for prostitution at all. Zhang Lu's Hong joked with a smile. The two of you are worthy of being superiors and subordinates. All a virtue. Xu Qian drank a lot of wine. Some floated. Zhang Jinluo's words are not right. Yang Jinluo is not a good woman. The headdress is too fake. There is still a difference between the two. The crowd laughed. The field was instantly filled with a cheerful air. I drank it until 2 o'clock. The banquet dispersed. Li Yuchen also wanted to go back, but it was Xu Qian and Song Tingfeng. And Zhu Guangxiao desperately stayed, stuffed him with a delicate little lady, and locked him in the house. Xu Qian as the host. After arranging everyone, only then did he enter Fuxiang's room. The fragrance that had just finished bathing sat cross-legged on the edge of the bed. Wipe her jet-black hair. How can so many people come today? Xu Qian said with a smile. Not yet for the girls in the yard. Are they all well organized? After saying that, he opened the door and walked out. I'll be back later. He pressed his steps, tiptoed towards Li Yuchen's room. And then I saw it. The same sneaky Song Tingfeng and Zhu Guangxiao. Xu Qian signaled with his eyes that you are also here to listen. In the corner, the two nodded and asked the head with the eyes. Test your skills. Be careful and control your breathing. After a few moments, the three found that there was no sound of shaking the bed. There's a conversation inside. The old slave's house has been washed. Go wash it. Li Yuchen agreed in a slightly low voice. After a long time, the woman's voice came to the master. The bed is warm. What are you walking around the room? Li Yuchen said that the furnishings in the room were too miscellaneous. A mess in this room. This official is like sitting on pins and needles. The woman was stunned, and it was already very neat. It's not the slave family who cleans the house every day. The teacups on the table should surround the teapot. Keep a specific distance. The potted plants by the window should be placed 2 inches further to the left. The stools are too miscellaneous. It should be arranged in the same way as a teacup around a teapot. This painting hanging on the wall. Shouldn't it hang in the center? The screen is crooked. I'll just put it right. Your embroidered shoes are not neatly arranged. How can a woman's judo be neat? Who's going to do it? The old man and slave have been waiting for you for a while. Li Yuchen listened. If you're not happy, who says you can't do it? You watch and learn. This officer teaches you how to tidy up the house. The woman's face was full of question marks. You're here to do cleaning. I'm still here for prostitution. Under the window, Xu Qian'an and the 3 of them were also dumbfounded. I don't have the interest to listen to the roots of the wall anymore. So they all crept away. Xu Qian'an was heartbroken and did not start a family. I'm married. How do you feel like a beginner? It won't be the first time I've called fonts. Xu Qian'an thought for a while. We said we'll go back to our room later. Make the noise louder. Nicholas Song thinks this method is very good. So Shadow Mei Xiaoga. Tonight's shaking machine was particularly intense. Next up is the paid content. I know you don't like it, so I skipped it. The curtain was repaired the next day. Oren usually looks down on Takeo. It's rare to be able to sleep in the anxiety of the little Oren. Satisfied, I can't wait to treat Xu Qian'an as a son. No wonder it's rumored that you're an Oren killer. You could do it, Xu Qian'an said blankly. What? Jiang Luzhong laughed twice. The illusion of 9 women fighting for men spread in the capital. Xu Qian'an thought about it. Lao Tzu's style was killed. But the Oren killer is the Oren killer. It's better than prostitution. At this time, Nicholas Song joked with a smile. How did you sleep last night? Li Yuchen's hands were slightly sweaty. It's not bad, but it's a little noisy. Fuka's room. The maid said that the lady had just sent someone to pass the word. Said that at lunchtime, the lady was invited to King Yuan for a drink. Fu Xiang's face showed displeasure. Nothing to do. Either traitor or theft. But he went to the banquet anyway. After all, Ming is in love. It's not good to tear the skin. An Oren said. I heard that Su Gongzi wrote a poem in the imperial city. Reprimanded Sun Shangshu of the criminal department. Have you heard of this, sisters? The Oren were immediately interested. Su Gongzi wrote poetry again. Su Gongzi is not only talented. It's even more daring. Just in front of the imperial city, the Ministry of Punishment is still in the book. Cut his face. It's not just to cut his face. As soon as the poem came out, Sun Shangshu's reputation. I'm afraid that this topic will stop at the extreme. So the topic turned to Xu Qian'an. Sister Fuka, how did Su Gongzi behave at night? Fuka frowned. It turned out that I was invited to dinner just to gossip about such things. Can you say such a thing? If only I had told them. Maybe I'll be rumored everywhere that I'm a vulgar woman. At this moment, a leaf slowly fell in front of him. Fu Xiang's heart moved. Use chopsticks to pick up a fishbone and place it on top. Don't stop until you have 7 sticks. Fu Xiang smiled. The Oren around you. There was a look of envy on their faces. After Xu Qian'an returned home, as soon as I picked up a pen and paper, I began to write in my diary. December 29th, I haven't written a diary in a long time. I burned the previous diary. But Xu is not a serious person. Today's vision, I have honored your majesty. No evidence of great disrespect can be left behind. although I burned it a few days after I finished writing. Your Majesty has forgiven me the death penalty. Hurt. The Book of Rights committed suicide in the dungeon of the criminal department. It's the ending that everyone wants. However, the royal capital is quite kind. Fought for him for the end of the exile of his whole family. There is no full slaughter. There is no medical obstruction. I asked Wei Yuan why he didn't fall into the well. Wei Yuan said that it was not a gentleman's doing. You're gone. What a gentleman. Xu Qian'an crossed it out and wrote it again. Wei Yuan people are not bad. Today, December 30th. Go to the academy to visit Jiro. Jiro told me a lot. Let me extract the core content. These bastards. Today's test is discussed. Tomorrow I will test the poems. The day after tomorrow, take the test of 4 books. It's either you or him. What the fuck is going on? It seems that the academic pressure is indeed very high. Even Erlang couldn't stand it anymore. It felt like he was in the second half of my senior year of high school. That state. Can't recall. That's a shadow in my life. Test the fuck every day on December 31st. I feel that Fu Xiang is becoming more and more gentle and considerate to me. Is this the legendary love affair? No, no, no. I'll have to snub him for a few days. Change the Oiran tomorrow. January 1st. Miss Ning Yin is awesome. The flexibility of the body that practices martial arts is good. Various postures. Only you can't think of it. He couldn't do it without him. I can't stop it. January 2nd today. I started writing novels. Because he promised Ling Yu. Ask him for some interesting picture books. I remember the beginning was from the beginning. There is a pair of childhood sweethearts who were born early. Today, January 3rd. Accompany table rowing. This princess is somewhat squeamish and brutal and willful. But it's good to flicker. No scheming. Very much trust in me. I managed to get it from him. A famous painting worth 20 taels of gold. Turned his head and gave it to Daddy Wei. On January 4th, I chatted with Princess Huiqing today. Some of the impact of the Sang case on the situation in the court. He then invited me to compete. He turned out to be the pinnacle of alchemy. I seem to have found something. As everyone knows, alchemy gold cannot be broken. This is the same for both men and women. I'm not talking about Princess Huiqing or Chuzi. Of course, the princess who is out of line in this matter is still Chuzi. I mean, with his talents. Should not be stuck in alchemy gold. Maybe he did it on purpose. In order not to marry. I saw the ambition of this princess. If he had been born in my time, it must be a domineering female president. On January 5th, I heard that I found the eldest princess yesterday. The princess looks angry at being cuckolded by her boyfriend, pointing at me and scolding the dog minion. Ungrateful. Obviously, I was rewarded with a famous painting a while ago. I said that the eldest princess rewarded me with 200 taels of silver. When he heard this, he actually added money. It's so wise. I didn't take advantage of him either. I made him a shuttlecock. There's no such thing in the palace. The table had fun. Dragged me to play with him until dusk. What an empty day. January 6th. Daisu Lingying and Chu Kaiwei went to Guiyue Tower for dinner. 2 terrible females actually ate 5 taels of silver. I feel like blood is lacking. After this time of getting along, something not so good was discovered. Chu Kaiwei is 18 years old, but it seems that the love has not been opened. Sluggish in terms of feelings. I blush when I flirt with her, but turn around and forget. Either I'm not handsome enough, either she's not enlightened yet. I think it's the latter. After all, I haven't seen anyone more handsome than me. Nangang Akane and Jiro are beautiful rather than handsome. We have to keep up the good work. Previous experience tells me, if I hook Chu Kaiwei to the bed earlier, there won't be that much trouble at all. Of course, it's the same with hooking up with a princess. It's just that the sequelae are too great. Princess Huiqing's rank is too high. It's a bit difficult. You can try the table, but the end will probably be, let's cut it all over. On January 7th, Ping Yuan Big Bald Head came to me. asked me to borrow money. I enjoyed it. There will be difficulties, just look for me. This sentence will pay back. Shit, you stinky monk living in a nursing home. Where did I get the money to pay me back? That's it. It's considered charity. That's right. During this time, the situation in the court became more and more unpredictable. Partisanship is in full swing. This may be what His Majesty is happy to see. January 8th. Xu Qian'an. You're about to reach the peak of the qi refining realm. Such good qualifications. One should not indulge in femininity. Hurry up and practice. Standing post is proof. From today onwards, I will not accompany the two princesses. Do not accompany Chu Kaiwei. Do not accompany Su Lingyue. I don't go to the church and sleep with any Oiran. If that's it, singing with songs. January 9th. Tick the bar and listen to the music. Or hook orchid. This morning, Xu Qian was summoned by Yang Yin to the Divine Spear Hall. Yang Yin got straight to the point. Said that the servant father intended to promote you as a prostitute. Xu Qian was stunned, and Duke Wei wanted to promote me to a lewd snail. Then there were promotions and salary increases, and they reached the pinnacle of life. The joy of marrying Bai Fume. The month of the gong is 10 taels of silver. And that's not even counting some hidden income. Secondly, the rights of the silver gong are very large. Not only can it be called with a direct gong, and the position is more secure, because even if it's a golden gong, nor does he have the right to expel the gong at will. Eventually, Asura was to be in charge of the night patrol of the imperial city. This also means Su Wen will be able to enter and leave the imperial city freely in the future. It was more convenient to see Huaiqing and Linen. This is beneficial for her to develop a relationship with the princesses. Hug the princess's jade legs. Yang Yin continued to wait for the inspection. The watchman has also been inspected. This is examined by the righteous father. The lifting and lowering of the watchman is during the monitoring period. I'll start with you. Su's wife went home from her job. After dinner, Xu Qian coughed. I have something to announce. After investigation, I am Siam. Of course, that's not the point. The point is that I intend to include it. City to buy a house. Aunt and Su Lingyue, the mother and daughter, are beautiful. There was a sparkling light in his eyes. After all, after living in the inner city, the security environment has been strengthened. There are very few cases of robbing people's women on the street. Then there is the shop in the inner city, which is far from being comparable to the outer city. The things you buy and eat are all up to a notch. Second Uncle Su patted him on the shoulder with relief. It's as if the child in my eyes has finally grown up. Xu Qian lay in bed at night. Imagination. I can get a promotion and a raise. In addition to the merits of the Samboan and Pingyang County main cases. And then there's the good sycophant. The famous painting that I was given to me. Wei Yuan liked it very much when he saw me come back like this. Definitely nurture me. So even if the ability is outstanding, there is leadership cultivation. You have to be a man yourself. Tomorrow I will go to the dental ranks to make a list of house purchases. Pick the house one by one. I still have more than 7,400 taels in savings. It shouldn't be difficult to buy a 3-entry yard. Thinking about it, and he fell into a deep sleep. Early the next morning, Xu Qian rode his beloved little mare. Hurry to see Tianjin. Miss Kaiwei, I want to buy a house in the inner city. I know that Si Tianjin will observe feng shui. I would like you to ask for your help in removing it. Kaiwei puffed out her cheeks. I'm going to learn alchemy. Don't go, Song Qing said. I'll call a junior brother to accompany you. Su Qi's heart is a bandit in the middle of the belly. Why don't I do it? This kind of thing can only be meaningful if the junior sister accompanies it. Who loves to go shopping with a big man? Su's wife and politely refused to send her relatives. Miss Kaiwei, why are you so angry today? Chu Kaiwei replied. I've been stuck in the 7 grades feng shui master for more than a year. Alchemy can already be promoted. But alchemy is too difficult, tired and boring. Xu Qian expressed his understanding when he heard this. After all, Polytechnic is a woman's nightmare. Chu Kaiwei continued, and promoted to a 6th grade alchemist. A brand new alchemy needs to be completed independently and carry it forward to the people. Positive feedback. This is the only way to be promoted. Xu Qian obviously didn't understand. Got feedback from the people on Hu Tsaiwei's words. Xu Qian obviously didn't understand, but he didn't explain. Instead, he continued to ask, "Do you know who made the gunpowder?" Xu Qian scratched his cheek. "How do I know?" Song Qing explained. Gunpowder was 300 years ago. A feng shui master of Xu Qian'an's sword refined it. After he popularized gunpowder, it has been recognized by the people. Promoted to alchemist. Chu Kaiwei added, "Of course. Not to say. You have to make something shocking. Senior brother Song Qing has refined the glass. An alchemist who has only been promoted. The focus is on people's feedback." Xu Qian secretly hated in his heart. It turned out that it was Song Qing who ruined my money-making plan. Thou son of a king. Then he asked why he wanted to get feedback from the people. Chu Kaiwei suddenly looked at Song Qing. Song Qing sighed. Said that this is Si Tianjin's secret. It doesn't hurt to talk to you, but don't pass it on. You think, how is Si Tianjin different from other cultivation systems? Xu Qian is serious about serving the country and the people. Selfless dedication, particularly noble. Such an answer. A few white-clothed warlocks on the side couldn't help but be stunned. Standing still for a while, recalled Xu Qian's words. Send a satisfactory sweaty hand. You are a very discerning and precise person. I admire that. In major systems, 9 products are the foundation. In fact, the peculiarity of the 9 products represents the core of the system. Takeo's alchemy mirror, the Confucian enlightenment mirror, the novice mirror of the Buddhist gate. The core of martial arts refining is the body. The body is the foundation of a warrior. Confucianism is enlightenment. Does this mean that if you don't have a brain, don't read? The novice purification of the Buddha gate. The little novice is to keep the vows. Ordination is the foundation of a monk's enlightenment of the Dharma. Xu Qian asked suspiciously, "Is the warlock's 9-rank healer quiet?" The doctor doesn't seem to have much to do with the warlock. Song Qing pointed out that the essence of a 9-grade doctor is not a doctor. Rather, the human warlock system is humane, so the achievement of a 6-rank alchemist. It needs the approval of the people. Therefore, Si Tianjin needs to be attached to the imperial court. Xu Qian suddenly seemed to understand. No wonder this group of white-clothed people are obviously very proud. But what they do is to serve the people. It is no wonder that all generations of concurrently in power have been the guardians of the capital. It turned out that it was necessary to attach to the imperial court. It reminded him. Confucianism also needed to be attached to the imperial court. Confucianism still has no 2nd-grade masters. Listen to Jiro. It is likely that he was cut off from his career. This is like the feng shui master of the 7 grades. It is not recognized by the people, so I haven't been able to get promoted. If there is humanity, there must be other Taoism, except for the superficial differences in the system. Behind it is also hidden to this distinction. Xu Qian asked about the new alchemy. Is there an eyebrow or not? Song Qing said helplessly, the little junior sister was not smart in the first place. I don't like to study. I'm afraid it's difficult. Several of the other white-clad warlocks shook their heads, expressed disbelief in Chu Tsaiwei's current life. Chu Kaiwei pouted. It's like a bad student with rubbish grades. In the face of the elders' hatred of iron and steel, they sighed. Xu Qian thought that there was no chicken essence in this world. I don't know how to make chicken bouillon. Doesn't count as completing an alchemy? He groaned for a moment. Said for this, I have a solution. The voice fell. It almost caused an uproar in the room. All the white-clothed people looked at it. Xu Qian was a little speechless. What's going on with you all like this? How thorough. Exposed. The relief of an old father who finally solved a matter of heart. Xu Qian'an laughed dryly. And let me think about it again. I'll give you an answer in a few days. Miss Kaiwei, there is leisure today. Song Qing immediately pushed Xu Kaiwei to stand up. Yes, yes. Su Gongzi is the noble man of our Si Tianjian. Isn't it hundreds of times more important than alchemy? Today you will accompany him on a walk around the inner city. Soon after, Su Qian took Xu Kaiwei to Yaxing. An old agent greeted him warmly. Whether the old lady wants to buy a property or a house. Su Qian complained in his heart. In his previous life, the old man was a convex and backward workplace uniform. The beautiful lady came to entertain. Su Qian found a place in the hall. Sit down with a butt. Enough to put on the posture of the nouveau riche. I'm here to give birth. The smile on the old broker's face became more and more enthusiastic. What scale? Su Qian said lightly. 3 in. The smile on the old broker's face is not something that can be described as enthusiastic. In the inner city varies depending on the location. Ordinary small courtyards don't say. The price of a house in Sanjin is between 5,000 and 10,000 taels. Broker. This year, I have never sold a big house of this grade. It opened for a year and ate it directly. Old economy asked humbly, do you have a house you like? Su Weifan said lightly, 5,000 to 7,000 taels of house. Make a list. Soon several lists were made. Su Wife took it and glanced at it a few times. And then put what you can't look at or can't afford. All tossed aside. Xu Kaiwei wondered, why only this one of the houses? Su Wife raised her eyebrows and smiled. Because the house above is close to the sect. How can this house be so cheap? The old economy looked left and right. He said in a low voice, cheap naturally has a reason to be cheap. That house is very evil. Uninhabitable. It's better to be objective or choose something else. Sue's wife, Ansi, has an evil nature. Then I'm a beater. I'm really going to see what kind of evil nature method it is. Sue's wife asked cautiously, what the hell is going on, old man? Old Jean's silence said in horror. The house was haunted. It started about 2 years ago. The house was originally a resurrected one. One night, suddenly, I heard a woman's cry in the courtyard. The cry is special. Don't be a madman. The people in the house came out with lanterns to check. I saw a woman dressed in white sitting by the well. Hide your face and weep. The next man asked her who she was. She didn't answer either. Just crying there. The subordinates originally thought that it was a female relative in the house who had been wronged. Run into the yard to find out. So he took the lantern and shone it over. The old broker's voice grew deeper. It's as if you've witnessed something terrible happening. Who knew that Xu Kaiwei clenched her little fists? Scared and curious, he asked what happened later. The old broker's voice was erratic. At this time, the woman suddenly raised her face. His features were blurred with flesh and blood. Eyes hang on the face, rendering 2 black holes. Maggots crawled around inside. His mouth is black and purple. Jet black blood spilled from his mouth. After the first wealthy man moved out, 2 or 3 buyers then suffered the same incident. There are even more evil ones. From then on, it was like pouring blood mold. One problem after another. It's not that someone in the family is unlucky enough to get hurt. It's that business has plummeted. The family base is getting thinner and thinner. Had to move out of the house. Su Qian asked if there was a report to the official. The old economy sighed. Why didn't he report it? But because there were no deaths. After the government came a few times, it didn't matter. However, the first few rich families have invited masters. It did settle down for a while at first, but it didn't take long for it to resurge. The female ghost wept in the middle of the night. It made the whole house panic. The bad luck didn't get any better. Bad luck or bad luck? Su Qian said lightly, very interesting house. We're going to see him first. The old economy was taken aback. Xian said that these two young couples are not stupid. Young and vigorous. I don't know how thick the sky is. I always feel special. Exceptions will be made. The old economy is helpless. But he still fulfilled his duty. Okay, old age. Let's take the two of you to see it. Let's pick slowly. The house is far from the church division. Only 3 miles. There is also little noise during the day. Quiet in the middle of nowhere. It's a good place. The old economy opens the lock hanging on the door of the house. Push open the heavy door with dedication. Old lady. It is a very respectful title to invite the old lady inside. It's like being called Mr. and Mrs. in a formal setting. Xu Qian'an nodded. In. Look around. This house is both the layout and the architecture. It is much brighter and more atmospheric than the second uncle's house. Lao Jin suddenly said, "Just see here. You can't go inside. It's very unlucky. Su's wife and Fu Fei, I still think you're in the way." Then he said lightly, "You go outside and wait. We'll come out later." I took my wife to see it. The old economy doesn't say anything more. After all, good words are hard to persuade. Damn it. At this time, Chu Kaiwei frowned and said, "Who is your wife?" Actually said nonsense. Su Qian looked at him with a smile. The heart says that it is not a matter of time. Emperor Yuan Jing pondered for a moment. Said that it was the golden gong that hit the yamen of the watchman who reported you. Zhu Yang and Wei Yuan still didn't speak. At this time, one of the members of the criminal department was already among the servants. His Majesty violated the law by beating people and abusing their power for personal gain. The minister is not in the abyss. Fight more people with deterrence. Eliminate unhealthy tendencies. Several ministers immediately reconsidered. Emperor Yuan Jingchen said. The case was referred to the criminal department. Dali Siqing and the government jointly dealt with it. Within 3 days, the town will bear fruit. End of meeting. Wei Yuan didn't take a few steps. I heard someone shouting behind me to stay behind. This official wants to know from Wei Gong. Details of those lists to ask for food. Wei Yuan nodded angrily. Someone will send a copy when they come back. Dali Temple. There is one more thing about Dali Siqing's satisfied sweaty hands. The official looked at Zhu Jinluo as a talent. I want to transfer him to Dali Temple. This official will make an announcement to His Majesty later. Let's say hello to Gong Wei first. Dali Siqing saw that Wei Yuan was unmoved. After a moment of silence, laughing, Duke Wei knew what the official wanted. Wei Yuan also laughed in exchange for not losing. On top of the carriage, Nangong Qian rubbed and sobbed. Hit the father-in-law. You know that he may have a different heart. I want to remember the old feelings. That's good. It's not as simple as losing your troops. Beat the change. In the yamen, except for Li Yuchen, who is dead-eyed. And then there is the stereotypical warrior Yang Yan. Not interested in beauty and money. Is like a paranoid like Nangong Qianro. Nangong Qianro hated whether to kill him. Wei Yuan calmly replied that the settlement would have to wait until the Autumn Queen. Nangong Qianro was puzzled. Although it's not because of that kid. But he was a shadow father. You could have avoided it. That kid deserves so much attention from his father-in-law. Wei Yuanqing smiled and said that there are many people who are so interesting in the Golden Gong. There is only one. I'm looking forward to his growth. Speaking of the style of painting, Our Majesty has changed. I won't be relieved to see me grow big. Nangong Qianro asked Dali Siqing again. I just wanted to exchange that list for a secret letter in my father-in-law's hands. Why did the stepfather refuse? He knew that his father-in-law's last sentence was not a loss. It's not that I agreed to the exchange of Dali Siqing. Instead, he decided to endure the pain and replace the gold and silver luo. Lose both. Nangong Qianro sighed. This year is really eventful. Every time it is investigated, it is a great upheaval. The team that my stepfather cultivated with great difficulty. This time you can't hurt your muscles and bones. Every time it is checked, there will be a winner. The dead party was the one that rose in the last investigation. But one thing is inevitable. That is the end of the investigation. All parties will lose a lot. The winner is also a Pyrrhic victory. At this time, Wei Yuan Dandandao returned to the yamen. You go to Xu Qian'an. Let him hide for a few days. I'll find a way to get him out. This side of the Laurel Tower. Xu Qian'an spent an hour shopping with Chu Kaiwei. Buy what you see delicious. Xu Qian'an sighed from the bottom of his heart. Shopping is really more tiring than fighting. This tiredness is not physical. It's spiritual, but just coax to be happy. It's also worth it for this woman to be a little tired. I've heard a saying in my last life. There are 70 ways to coax girls. One is shopping. The rest is 69. She had no way of verifying the latter. But shopping works really well. At this time, a feeling of palpitations came. She quietly took out the jade path. View info number 1. Said that something happened to the lantern maker's yamen. Jin Gong Pig and Sheep reported Wei Yuan for corruption and perversion of the law. The case involved 4 golden gongs, 12 silver gongs, and 30 copper gongs. It is jointly handled by the Ministry of Punishment and Dali Temple. Does this mean that Wei Yuan is about to fall out of favor? Fell during the investigation. Xu Qian'an set off a stormy wave in his heart. Zhu Yang became a 2nd and 5th boy. The whistleblower letter implicates so many people. This time, the partisan struggle in the capital is in full swing. Each has its own winners and losers. I thought it was a special positioning for the Watchman. Can stabilize the market in this turmoil. Don't be surprised. But it seems that I have a good understanding of the situation in the court. I still don't know enough about party fighting. Zhu Yang is a golden gong. There must be a lot of black material in his hands. Now suddenly rebel and beat the change. It is estimated that it will hurt the muscles and bones. As expected, it must be because of me. I heard that Zhu Yinluo was injured by that knife. Fall to the root of the disease. There is no hope for martial arts in the future. And I didn't just ignore it. Instead, he was promoted and raised. Indeed, if I were Emperor Yuan Jing, I'm definitely not going to watch Wei Yuan grow big. From the tax bank case to the funeral case. And then to the struggle during this time. The civilian clique has all their brains out. The honorable remains largely intact. But this is because people don't have enough power in their hands. There is no confidence to tear up. Dad Wei told me. Now it is on top. The power of the dead party and the Watchman is the strongest. Now the party has lost its soldiers. The eunuch party represented by Wei Yuan definitely wants. Do weaken me a little gong should. It's no wonder that Zhu Yang will let me go. At this time, number 4 said, corruption is only a superficial one. To say that corruption perverts the law. The Watchman is managed by Wei Yuan. How can there be well-dressed beasts in the court, and they look ugly? Emperor Yuan Jing just took this opportunity. It's just a matter of suppressing Wei Yuan. Xu Qian'an pondered. Number 4 is worthy of being an old man in officialdom. Thousands of miles away. Analysis of the wood into the wood 3 points. That's pretty much what I thought. But with the rank of number 1. Can't you see through it? It's so simple. Asking such a stupid question. Xu Qian'an enters the information. If it is the meaning of Emperor Yuan Jing, then Wei Yuan can't do anything. I have to give up these subordinates. Number 4 continued. It depends on the attitude of Emperor Yuan Jing and Wei Yuan. Just greedy words. The penalty will not be too large. But there will definitely be a group of people who will be expelled from the yamen. Xu Qian'an suddenly worried about his future. Twin turtles, yes. At this time, Chu Kaiwei asked, write and draw in the mirror. What to draw? Xu Qian'an smiled and said it was fine. After dinner, let's go see the haunted house. No matter what. I bought the house first. Owning a set of real estate is more important than anything else. As he spoke, he handed the jade gold to Chu Kaiwei. You keep it for me for a few days. After dark, The two of them came to the haunted mansion again. Su wife and asked, "Can you tell me now? Why come over at night?" Chu Tsaiwei's voice is crisp, and she is full of yang energy during the day. The female ghost in the well will not appear. To clear her, I had to wait for her to come out. Also, I suspect there's something strange at the bottom of the well. I'm going to go down and have a look later. With that, the two jumped down with a thud. The well water is cold. The two of them swam for about 10 minutes. Suddenly, I saw a woman in white lying at the bottom of the well. The woman seemed to be aware of it, too. Slowly looked up. It was a bloody face. In the eye sockets of the black hole, maggots wriggled. Xu Qian'an felt a shock in his heart. The old economy is not a lie. This female ghost really looks like this. The female ghost in white seemed to sense the threat. Silently roared. He lunged at the two of them. Xu Qian'an held the hilt of the knife. "I won't deal with resentful spirits anymore. Just give him a knife." At this time, a feng shui plate in Chu Tsaiwei's hand. Suddenly, there was a golden light. The golden light put the female ghost into the feng shui plate. Not long after Chu Kaiwei took back the feng shui plate, it came out of the water. Xu Qian'an climbed up with both hands on the wall of the well. Turning around, "You grab my legs. I'll take you up." After coming out of the bottom of the well, Chu Kaiwei said that this is just an ordinary resentful soul. Xu Qian'an frowned. Just ordinary resentful spirits. So how did he last so long? Chu Kaiwei explained that the bottom of the well is connected to the undercurrent underground. That's how the resentment in the well comes from. My guess is that there are veins underground. Xu Qian'an nodded suddenly. So your evolution doesn't work. The mages of the previous masters are also useless. Besides, they're not warlocks yet. Chu Kaiwei nodded vigorously. Don't want this house. The veins are underground. Feng Shui is extremely poor. If you stay for a long time, you will be riddled with bad luck. Xu Qian'an smiled and said, "Why not? This house is old and cheap. You think I'm really just looking for you to see? You've got to help me get the Feng Shui right." Chu Kaiwei had a bitter face. She was already working hard to learn alchemy every day. She pouted. "Jump back on the roof. Shout down and send me to heaven." Xu Qian'an put his hands on a small bench. Chu Kaiwei jumped up. The toes were on the palm of his hand. With the terrifying power of the dancer, the light body rushed into the night sky like a sharp sword. Glaucoma opens. Chu Kaiwei overlooked the entire house. Strange, this area has good feng shui. It shouldn't be a haze. Su Qi complained with peace of mind. "Is it that your business level is too poor?" Xu Qian'an asked. "Why don't you take a look at it? Or go back to the 4 days to ask the brothers for help?" Chu Kaiwei landed. Waving his hand, he said that there was no need to be so troublesome. Let's go directly to the psychic female ghost. Empathize with him. See how he died. But the female ghost is too Yin. Empathy with him takes bearing. Yin Qi enters the body. But it's not good for women's health. That's why you're here. Takeo is full of blood and energy. There will be no sequelae. After that, Chu Kaiwei took off the feng shui plate. Fingers are lightly hooked. A faint black mist bounced out. Chu Kaiwei flicked her fingers at Xu Qian'an. Black mist shoots out, crashed into Xu Qian'an's eyebrows. Xu Qian'an felt cold. Then I sensed a lot of resentment and madness. And the idea of fear. This group of thoughts frantically hit his primordial spirit, trying to control his body. Suddenly, the female ghost became very quiet. It should be trembling. Did he perceive the existence of the divine book monk? The monk did fall asleep. Otherwise, maybe the female ghost will be exterminated. The two empathize. The next moment, strange pictures emerged. It's like playing a movie. I was originally the daughter of a wealthy family in Taikon County. Because it's beautiful. The person who asks for a kiss breaks through the threshold. Follow the normal trajectory of life. I would have married a good man, live a peaceful and stable life. But one trip changed my life. In a secluded alley. The traffickers forcibly abducted me. When I wake up, I found out that I had been sent to a mansion in the capital. There are many women like me living in the house. We do the same thing. That is, sleep with the guests who come and go in and out of the house every night. For them to play with. They call each other Lord. Obviously a person with an official body. The adults who took off their official robes were more beasts than beasts, wantonly playing with the women in the house. I have served many adults, although my heart is full of pain and resentment, but afraid of death. Death can only endure humiliation. And so it went on for a few years. I was taken by a guest named Tamraha. It became the exclusive domain of that guest. My situation is slowly starting to get better. But because of a certain accident, I hear you. Ramraha's conversation with a big shot. The conversation involved cloud boats and artillery. Mechanical, these words, and I was silenced by him. In the backyard of the mansion, there is a well. There are many suicides buried in the well. Or a woman who was tossed to death by a guest. I was killed and thrown into that well. After that, I turned into a ghost. But he was trapped in the well. By coincidence, I came here with an undercurrent at the bottom of the well, and nourish and retain through the resentment overflowing from the undercurrent. Until now, the soul was not annihilated. Chu Kaiwei looked at Xu Qian's face and distorted repeatedly. Sometimes hideous, sometimes painful. What kind of experience was it exactly? Just let a woman possess so many negative emotions. Chu Kaiwei hurriedly took the female ghost back into the feng shui plate. Xu Qian opened his eyes, spit out the jade in the chest. This empathy is really not a human thing. Fortunately, he insisted on watching the magic power of the primordial god every day. If this were to be replaced by ordinary people, I guess I'm suffering from depression or schizophrenia. But it has to be said, there are so many familiar faces in it. Therein too, the big man when talking to Tamraha is the prayer party. Announced the one mentioned above. Tamraha doesn't look like a Central Plains person. It's more like a human race in the area ruled by the witch god cult. But how could the Wushan sect have anything to do with Yunzhou? Yunzhou is in the southeast of Dafeng, although only a few words. But it seems that the announcement has been in the cult of the Outer Wiccans, or Yunzhou conveys advanced equipment. Xu Qian made a long story short. Tell Chu Kaiwei about it. This matter involves treason. I have to tell Wei Yuan immediately. Chu Kaiwei was very puzzled after hearing this. He was tortured before he died. After death, the resentment persists. You don't have to be a ghost. But if the number accumulates, we'll be angry. If there is such a place in the inner city, the watchman should have found out earlier. Xu Qian said with a smile. More on that later. By the way, you give me back the mirror. He's going to make a meritorious service now. Is not afraid of the so-called crime of corruption and perversion of the law. Naturally, the mirror does not need to be handed over to Chu Kaiwei for safekeeping. Just kidding, there are more than 900 taels of gold in it. Xu Qian took Chu Kaiwei to the yamen of the watchman. Along the way, you will encounter 4 gongs holding the handle. Stop for cross-examination. Xu Qian showed his waist card that it was me. Several gongs did not dare to slack off. Master Xu, why are you still wandering around? Today, the Ministry of Criminal Affairs and the Dali Temple sent a large number of people. Break into the yamen. Took away many colleagues. It said you're on the list. It's just that you're not in the yamen. Escaped. It's not that I can't go back home. Xu Qian asked who had been arrested. He asked. It was found that Zhang Luzhong was among the 4 golden gongs who were arrested. And there are Li Yuchen and Min Shan and Yang Feng in the silver gong. All 3 were the prostitutes under him in the Sambo case. Zhang Jinluo is quite decent in life. Even if there is greed, it is petty greed. How did I get caught? It's because he and I have a good relationship. Was retaliated against by the surname Zhu. And Brother Chun. It's so miserable. The money didn't get out. Advanced the prison. Sure enough, The evil revenge surnamed Xu has a goal. Pick on those close to me. Both weakened to fight more people, and took revenge on the enemy. The two gongs were incompetent and furious. Duke Wei will definitely save them. These well-dressed beasts are really easy to bully us. I also heard that His Majesty personally ordered the investigation. Wei Gong is afraid that things will be difficult to do. That's how it can be good. The atmosphere in the Yamen today was particularly frightened and silent. Xu Qian'an comforted that there would be a way. The two gongs shook their heads, very pessimistic, sighing, and went on patrol. Xu Qian'an returned all the way to Yamen. Go straight to the Haoqi building. He was stopped by the guards at the bottom of the building. Wei Gong was already resting. No one is seen. It's the rule. Xu Qian'an said, I have something important. Hurry up and get on board. The guards are very tough, Lord Xu. Come back tomorrow. Xu Xian's anger came up all of a sudden. Take a step forward. A slap on the wrist. It seems to be puzzled. He made several more ruthless moves in succession. I asked one last question. It is not accessible to the ship. The guards on the side complained bitterly. Aren't you embarrassed? We'll blame it down for the public later. Xu Qian'an took out a tael of silver from the money bag. This must be a vulgar yellow and white thing. It's worth the adventure. No, I'll change people. The guards immediately nodded their heads repeatedly. It took about 10 minutes. Wei Yuan was dressed in a green robe. Instructed Xu Qian'an to do things with peace of mind. Burn charcoal and boil water. Then light the other candles. Xu Qian'an immediately did so. Father Wei seemed to be a little scared, although he is scheming. But he doesn't seem to have the talent to practice martial arts. Xu Qi sighed with emotion. Heaven is fair. Soon, candles lit up the spacious tea room. The charcoal fire was placed beside Wei Yuan. Wei Yuan said lightly today, I'll tell you to hide. As a result, I searched the Yamen and couldn't find you. I went to Shifu to inquire only to learn that you didn't go back. Go to the temple and ask. You're still not there. Find me so late. It's not for embezzlement. Wei Yuan finished speaking. Looked at Chu Kaiwei. This little gong is the person that Miss Kaiwei likes. Chu Tsaiwei's little face turned red, isn't it? But she's an unenlightened one. The blush was gone. At this time, Xu Qian'an hurriedly changed the topic to Duke Wei. I found a big case. Take time off to buy a house today. Discover a haunted, deserted mansion. After I dealt with this matter with Miss Kaiwei, empathize with female ghosts. Xu Qian'an told the details of empathy. Wei Yuan looked at Xu Qian'an. 7 when it is indeed with. The Yunzhou bandits are involved. Very good. This information is very important. Xu Qian'an said, then you can accept me as a righteous son. I didn't want to fight for a long time. But Su Baiqiao is a person who wants to face. He couldn't say that kind of thing anyway. Xu Qian'an was ashamed of the reason why Zhu Yang, Duke of Wei, betrayed. It's all because of me. Wei Yuan said that without him, there would be other incidents. This time, it was his party that was making enemies of Ben. Of course, there are other parties that are secretly contributing to the trouble. Su Qixin was taken aback. The leading figure behind this corruption case is the 7th party. I sent the letter by handing the book. Learn from number 1 that Zhu Yang betrayed the Yamen. I made 2 or 5 boys. But number 1 did not say that the driving force behind it was the 7 parties. I thought it was the royal party doing something. But that's too much of a coincidence. Today, there has just been a corruption case in Yamen. I'm also implicated. There was such a big discovery right away. It's because I'm fast forward to the birth refining God realm. So luck has changed qualitatively. Otherwise, it won't make sense. Chu Kaiwei complained that it was so interesting. The dead party colluded with the demon clan. The sect colludes with the witch god cult. Are there any people in the court? Your Majesty's cultivator's brain is broken. Xu Qian'an hurriedly used his elbow. Poked the unobtrusive girl. Are Si Tianjin's warlocks so virtuous? Wei Yuan smiled gently. and His Majesty ignored the government, although he is still in power. But it is inevitable to raise some demons and monsters. He's a powerful warlock. The court Zhu Gong is not a stupid person, but His Majesty is very useful, and those who have no power in their hands. He has always been generous and merciful. Miriam Yang, who has a somewhat absurd style. When they meet His Majesty, they are all facing away, and His Majesty is never angry. Su Weifan smiled and said with a smile about the Confucian dragon-slaying technique. Isn't this big dragon pictured? Xu Qian'an just finished speaking, was stabbed with an elbow in retaliation. Xu Qian'an thought of Emperor Yuanjing, manipulating the court. The hall master is also playing him. When an emperor only cares about his own rights, regardless of design and fame, the starting point for selecting talent will change. Assessment criteria tends to be obedient and easy to control. As for the character, how competent? It's not that important, unless it's as amazing as Wei Yuan. Come to think of it, Xu Qian complained that the same source was rotten. Wei Gong, is this the reason why you have cleared the obstacles? At this time, Wei Yuan took it out, wrote the arrest paperwork, then stamped the official seal. Wei Yuan handed it to Xu Qian, said that he would take this document and go to Mrs. Jin Gong Zhang, who was in office. Let him lead someone to kill the Yazi. Organize the temple here. After Zhang Kaidai finished reading the paperwork, laughed and said hello 3 times in a row. This time, we want to make the Qi party unable to eat and walk around. As he spoke, he looked at Xu Qian. This time, the copper wingman can survive. This man and woman should live in the palace. Zhang Kaitai's perception of Xu Qian is okay. This ordinary little gong always surprises people. Not only did the funeral case be solved, it was also discovered that prayer colluded with the witch god cult. It is indeed a talent worth cultivating. A quarter of an hour later, open the Taidian, ride a horse. It took only half an hour to reach the target mansion. A silver luo blasted through the door. The watchman rushed in. The whole mansion was in an uproar in an instant. Available over time, little by little, the shouts of killing disappeared into the silent night sky. Xu Qian held the knife and rushed all the way into the inner courtyard. According to the memories in the mind, kicked open the door of an inner courtyard. Immediately, I saw the warm antechamber like spring. A dozen guests and women gathered. They were disheveled. He looked terrified. Xu Qian shook off the black gold long knife and made the lamp man round. Kneel with your hands in your hands. Violators will be killed. After shouting, he left the hall. With a few gongs, he kicked open the doors of one room after another. Finally, all the clients of the prostitutes were gathered in the courtyard. Time? Ain Luo sneered and spoke to an official he knew. It's you, Lord Chao. Yo Wang, too. Lord Tang is really short and concise. Warm inner hall. The watchman looked extremely embarrassed. This group of brutes even catches small children. Dafeng resolutely cracked down on the behavior of changing Wantong. But there are many businessmen and officials who like this. Many green buildings will selectively raise some. Wait for the guests who have this hobby to come to the door. They are responsible for sleeping together. This side of the front hall. Zhang Kaidai asked in a deep voice, "Who is the person behind you?" The owner of the mansion is prostrate in the earth's prison. The villain just wants to make friends with some powerful people in North Korea and China. There is no one behind the scenes. At this time, Xu Qian said that there was a well in the backyard. It is dedicated to discarding ladies. Zhang Kaidai looked deeply in his eyes. The young people have taken a close look at me. Don't let him kill himself. Wait until you enter the dungeon of the watchman. The mouth of the tongue can also be pried open for him. Soon Xu Qian led Zhang Kaidai to the backyard. Found the well. The well water is dark black. A faint rancid smell wafted up. After the flesh is decomposed, bones sink. I'm afraid I'll have to go down to the well to salvage. At this time, Chu Kaiwei jumped on the roof, overlooking the entire backyard. After a while, he said, there was a forbidden formation in the courtyard. The resentment in the well was sealed. Su's wife and was in a trance for a moment to ban the formation. So for so many years, none of the watchmen noticed anything unusual. Su's wife asked, wait, isn't the formation the job of your warlocks? After asking, another doubt rose in his heart at the same time. Since he has the ability to set up a formation to suppress resentment, then why not just wipe out the resentment? To know. Even Chu Kaiwei of the 7th rank can do this. Put a feng shui in the backyard that is just in yang. You can eliminate future troubles. Chu Kaiwei pouted and said, there are always some warlocks who are loose cultivators. Behind the double sleep silver case, isn't there an alchemist playing tricks? At this time, Zhang Kaitai stared at the wellhead, said that there was something carved on the wall of this well. It seems to be a means of the witch god cult. It should be some kind of wrinkle. The exact role is unknown. Let people step on it. Go back to the dark pants. Xu Qian'an said, based on the information I got from empathy from the resentful spirits, this place is indeed associated with the cult of the witch god. After speaking, he complained in his heart, I was ridden under the crotch by the guy named Tamraha. I don't know how many times. A chance to meet him, and that he may know what it means to sweat profusely. That's when it happened. There was commotion and screaming in the antechamber. Zhang Kaidai was the first to rush back to the front hall. Xu Qian and the two quickly followed behind. When we get to the front room, I happened to see Zhang Kaidai referring to the sword. Cut the last paper figure in half. Xu Qian was shocked. What's going on? Enro, who was in charge of guarding the prisoners, replied. Suddenly, a lot of paper figures came out of these two people. I want to kill people and kill people. But we waited to stop me. Zhang Kaidai asked what happened to the prisoner. Enluo said that it was okay. After speaking, the gong on the side kicked the middle-aged man. But the man collapsed to the ground upright. Everyone's faces changed suddenly. Enluo, who was in charge of the guard, strode over. Detect the back of the snort and neck. His face became extremely ugly. Poor guards. Please punish you. Zhang Kaidai was silent for a few seconds. Slowly exhaled. I don't blame you. He walked to the corpse shop, pinched the corner of the middle-aged man's clothes, and shook it gently. A piece of clothing shredded into pieces. The middle-aged man's naked body was exposed to everyone's eyes. He had a bright red mark on his chest. Zhang Kaidai said that this was a wizard's curse killing technique. Snowman hair or blood, etc. Supplemented by the 8 characters of birth. You can kill invisibly. Xu Qian's face only felt a chill in his back. This method of murder cannot be prevented, especially a system like Takeo, which is only good at violence. Xu Qian thought for a while and asked, what about the paper man? Zhang Kaidai pondered for a long time. These paper figurines made me think about something. The methods of the witch god cult are unpredictable. There is a curse spell. There are dreams that kill. There is also the ability to manipulate ghosts and corpses. These paper figures are ghosts attached to them, driven to do things for the caster. Xu Qian exclaimed. The well in the backyard. It is the wizards of the witch god cult who use it exclusively to raise ghosts. This also explains why it is a ban, instead of a complete purification. That wizard was probably nearby. Zhang Kaidai said with a sigh. Our surprise attack caught him off guard. So lurking around, cast spells to kill people and kill people. The man is dead. He will not continue to linger in the neighborhood. Xu Qian asked Zhang Jinluo. Can't even you sense this paper man? I didn't even notice it just now. The paper figures were hidden in these teenagers. Zhang Kaidai explained. First, it is the divine stone of a warrior. It can only warn of things that pose a threat to itself. The second is that the paper figure is both a thing that the ghost attaches to. It's also a seal. It can block perception. The third is that the paper figure does not have a strong lethality, usually used to do errands rather than kill enemies. Xu Qian'an suddenly became furious. A few scolding rubbish. The black gold long knife is unsheathed. The sharp sword slashed through the beams of the hall. Somewhere on a gloomy roof, a figure hidden in the shadows sneered. Then it dissipated into darkness. Announced by the Department of Books. Shangshu of the Ministry of Industry is sleeping soundly with his concubine in his arms. A paper figure landed in the room with a night breeze. A few seconds later, the paper figure floated in a bed with a fresh breeze, stepping on the forehead of the Ministry of Works. The next moment, he was full of energy, hit his head in the face of the Ministry of Works. The Ministry of Industry Shangshu instantly sobered up. She took the contents off her face. After seeing that it is a paper figure, her expression became solemn. Immediately, he first observed the concubine beside him. Make sure he is sleeping soundly. That's when the paper kite unfolded. Squint and read. Read the small print on the paper. But it didn't take long to see it. The face of the Shangshu suddenly changed, until he finished the whole page. He exhaled a breath of turbid air with relief. Calm and ease returned. He groaned, picked up the pillow slowly, covered the mouth and nose of the concubine. The concubine, who was not breathing well, woke up instantly. But his life came to an abrupt end at this time. The next day's corruption case in the prison of the criminal department. The watchmen involved range from golden gongs to copper gongs. A total of 46. All of them are being held in the penal department. Originally, according to the rules, it should be the 3 yamen who each receive the detention part. Interrogations separately, but the dead party is in the tax bank case and the Sambo case. 2 core members were lost in succession. And Wei Yuan are incompatible. A living torture book that fell into the well. More enthusiastic than the Dali Siching of the 7 parties. Chun Xingdao, the secretary of the criminal department, is doing it. The heavens are looking at you, and they think that the end of the treachery will be able to escape the law. This officer has made an inventory of your property. You've made a deal. Wait for your majesty to go behind the scenes. Don't let any of you try to escape. Of course, the official is still willing to give you a chance. Who instructed you to embezzle money? Oppression of the people. Is it Wei Yuan? Li Yuchen sneered. Lord Corrupt Shangshu. Please let me know how much money I embezzled. Lao Tzu has been in the company for more than 10 years. A copper plate is not greedy. Shangshu of the criminal department snorted coldly. Repay the benefits of the tongue. But after saying that, he was stunned. His first glance was not on Li Yuchen's body. Instead, they were attracted by the neat and tidy cells. The cobwebs in the corner are gone. The straw mats are still tattered, but it fits neatly on the bed. Every detail is well organized. Shangshu of the criminal department was very moved. How can it be so neat? Look at this cell. There is an inexplicable sense of comfort. Sun Shangshu turned around and asked what this person's name was. How many taels of silver were embezzled? There are several apartments in the inner city. The official said that the man's name was Li Yuchen. In the inner city there is a simple courtyard. There is an elderly mother and a pregnant wife at home. As for money, the Ministry of Punishment only looted 50 taels of silver from his house. Sun Shangshu was shocked. Only 50 taels of silver. A silver gong. But there were only 50 taels of silver. Sun Shangshu felt that this was the sloppiness of the people in the criminal department. So he said angrily, "How did you check?" The officer whispered in his ear for a moment. After listening, Sun Shangshu was silent, snorted coldly. "Turn around and go." At this time, a golden gong asked Lao Jiang, "Do you have any plans?" Jiang thought about what the beautiful airway could plan. After the dismissal, he found another way to make a living. His wife and children are in the capital. "I'm not going to do it. That golden gong Dandao has no children and no daughters. You can take a trip to the rivers and lakes. It just so happens that this place in the capital is also tired of staying. Jiang Luzhong sneered. You said a while ago, I plan to marry and have children. Settle down in the capital. Lao Tzu hated that he hadn't scavenged money all these years. Just take some small profits. Otherwise, this Lawton will not be wronged. Jin Gong smiled and said, Then you will go to the grass after you are released from prison. Jiang Yuzhong took a crispy bite angrily. They actually know it in their hearts. The worst possible outcome is dismissal. At least there is no threat to life. As long as Takeo Takahira didn't make too many mistakes. The court will not be punished with deformity. Because of Takeo Takahira, who initiated the madness. The destructive power should not be underestimated. After the criminal department Shangshu left the prison, I asked again why I didn't see the little crumb surnamed Su. The official replied that he appeared to have fled. An arrest warrant has been prepared. When the yamen is stamped, it can be released. Sun Shangshu asked the kid how much money he had embezzled. The official opened the file and took a look, and yesterday someone was sent to check it. The Su mansion only scavenged hundreds of silk satins. But there was not much silver. Sun Shangshu was puzzled, and put away those silk satins first. When the matter is settled, it will be sent to the adults in the yamen. The officials were suddenly in trouble. Hesitantly, he said, We didn't dare confiscate those things. Sun Shangshu's face sank. His eyes were sharp at the official. The official hurriedly explained that it was given by His Majesty. No one dares to ask for it. If Su Pingji goes back to sue the royal court. Sun Shangshu immediately remembered what happened not long ago, and he will no longer pursue this stubble. Then he said that he heard that the private chief went to the teaching department. The officer nodded yes. We sent someone to inquire about the labor insurance of the Department of Education. The surname is Su. In just 2 months, 8 Oren slept in the workshop division, and within Mei Xiaoga's floating incense ornament. Sun Shangshu was a little bold. Isn't this it? It turned out that all the money was spent on the woman's belly. The confessions of the women in the church division. It can also be used as evidence. The official said in embarrassment. But the confessions of those women were very uniform. Sun Shangshu looked at him with questioning eyes. The official said indignantly. Those women admired Xingshu's talents. Self-pity and service do not take a penny. Sun Shangshu's body shook. Almost angry. He took a deep breath. He began to scold the bastard. If there is no flaw in something, arrange flaws for him. If you don't have money, send him money. This official will never let go of this little mess. At this time, a clerk hurriedly came in and told Lord Dao Shangshu. Word in the palace. Summoned by His Majesty. Sun Shangshu's face twitched a few times. Your Majesty is so diligent. 3 days and 2 heads to gather the courtiers. Here, Wei Yuan and Wang Shoufu arrived early. Sun Shangshu frowned. What kind of demon was Wei Yuan doing? At this time, Emperor Yuan Jing overlooked the important minister Wei Aiqing. Let's talk to Zhongqing. Wei Yuan came out of the queue. Last night's lighter. In the inner city. Found a house for the exchange of egg children and sikhang. Those women were originally young men from good families. It's also a child of an ordinary family. They were taken captive by human traffickers and imprisoned here. Forced to serve guests who come to the house at night to buy drunk. Last night, I beat the watchman. Thunder sorted, surrounded and suppressed this nest of thieves. 13 prostitutes were caught. 10 of them hold official positions. 3 people were wounded. Furthermore, the watchman salvaged 40 skeletons from a well in the backyard. They were all mutilated. The Liang family was wronged. A huge storm was stirred up in the imperial study. The ministers spoke loudly. Trafficking in human beings for private prostitution. Either one of them can make the officials involved doomed. Especially during reconnaissance. I can't cover it. Wei Yuan continued. According to the survey, the owner of the private house has a relationship with the wizards of the witch god cult. The wrinkles depicted in the shadow are evidence of this. confessed by the owner of a private house. He is doing things for the announcement of Lu Shangshu. The private house served as a place for the gangs to find pleasure. It is also a stronghold for secretly contacting the witch god cult. The voice fell. The ministers were in an uproar. Immediately, someone scolded Wei Yuanpan for biting and slandering. Others proposed to behead Wei Yuan's dog. Emperor Yuan Jing slapped the table. There was an instant silence in the study. His clever eyes fell on the capital Wang Zhongwen. Wang Iching thinks so. The capital went out to hunt Qin Dao, and the matter should be thoroughly investigated. Not to be tolerated. He actually understood in his heart what His Majesty meant. The words of the Book of War Merits. At most, it sold a big favor, and cut Wei Yuan's face. Zhan Wei Yuan's words. Once verified, the publication of the book is over. Its party lost a leader, and in the Sambo case, the royal party once tried to blame the publication of Shangshu, inflict a heavy blow on his party. Failed though, but now is an opportunity. Emperor Yuan Jing looked at Wei Yuan's traffickers. Wei Yuan shook his head, and the traffickers had been killed by witchcraft last night. There is no proof of death. The imperial study fell silent all of a sudden. The ministers looked at Wei Yuan with strange eyes. The corners of Shangshu's mouth were hooked, sneered, and went hunting. Shout out to your majesty. The minister is wronged. Wei Yuan slandered Wei Chun. Your majesty, please. Wei Yuan was extremely calm. Lang Dao asked his majesty to summon the gong. Emperor Xu Qian'an Yuan Jing frowned. How is this little gong again? But he was silent for a few seconds, to declare him in. 10 minutes later, Xu Qian entered the imperial study. Also accompanying him is Chu Kaiwei. Xu Qian bowed down to see his majesty. Female ghosts. Was collected in the feng shui plate of Miss Kaiwei, C. Tianjian. Your majesty wants to verify. You can pick a trustworthy person to sleep with a female ghost. After saying that, he thought darkly in his heart. You must find a man to empathize with. Emperor Yuan Jing looked at the big eunuch beside him. If you talk about who is the most trusted by him on the scene, naturally, this is Osaka, who has been serving by his side since he was a child. The big eunuch leaned over and said that he was willing to smear His Majesty's liver and brain. Su's wife was a little frightened when she saw that the great eunuch was a little frightened. So he comforted his father-in-law not to panic. Nothing is too much trouble. It's a gift to you. At most, it is written under the crotch by a man with the first vision. But don't worry. It's like watching a movie. There are no specific feelings. At this time, Chu Kaiwei gently tossed the feng shui plate. Dial the black mist to the center of the great eunuch's eyebrows. The next moment, the black mist invaded the opponent's primordial spirit. The face of the great eunuch who empathized with the female ghost suddenly became frightened. Suddenly hideous. Suddenly despair, sometimes painful. The process lasted a quarter of an hour. Chu Kaiwei pulled out the black mist. Put it back into the feng shui tray again. I saw the big eunuch voice you, kneeling on the ground and crying, Your Majesty. You have to be the master of the slaves. Emperor Yuan Jingchen said. What have you seen? Said the eunuch while crying. After telling all the experiences of female ghosts, finally came to the point. One night, he overhears on a secret conversation. Heard the words artillery equipment. The slave and maid also saw it. Lu Shangshu, who was officially announced by the Tamurami interlocutor. Emperor Yuan Jing's face instantly turned blue. An hour later, Xu Qian rode out of the palace on a mar, neck and neck with Wei Yuan's carriage. At this time, Xu Qian said in a deep voice, Gongbu Shangshu was one of the leaders of the cavalry party. Hold him in your hands. It is possible to uproot the horsemen. Wei Yuan smiled and said that now is not the time to pull out the cavalry. No more horsemen. The biggest beneficiary is not us. Jingdo belongs to the silver level. Xu Qian did not dwell on this topic. Instead, he said tentatively, I can be regarded as guilty and meritorious. Wei Yuan said, forget it. The Ministry of Punishment will not arrest you again. The rest of the watchmen still depend on His Majesty's intentions. Later, I'll hand you an excerpt to the palace. Su Qi relaxed with peace of mind. It's good to do these things before you go out. And the silver gong of my life. It should be 9 times out of 10. Let's go home first. Comfort the second uncle and aunt. The aunt sat in a chair in the antechamber. Is playing with little Doubting. Suddenly, I saw my unlucky nephew come back. Annie's face changed slightly. What are you doing when you come back? Your second uncle said that there are cases from the criminal department nearby. Get out of here. Little Doubting greeted him happily. Cauldron, cauldron. Did you bring anything delicious back? Xu Qian'an indifferently shattered the young sister's ardent expectations. No, Xiao Doubting is also a realistic girl. Immediately made the big brother angry like a barrier. Shaking his little ass and playing by himself, Xu Qian said to his aunt casually, things have stopped. I'll come back with a sigh of wisdom. Hear that things have been settled. There was a slight smile on my aunt's face, but it quickly converges. Instead, he blamed the way and knew to cause trouble all day long. Can you give your family a peaceful life? Sue's wife ignored her aunt's persecution. I've already chosen a house. I want to take Lin Yu and Lin Ying to see my aunt. Go and hear the words. Auntie's beautiful eyes lit up. He's been hungry for a new house in the inner city for years. However, there are 2 gold-swallowing beasts in the house. So this long-cherished wish has never been realized. The aunt immediately put down her reserve. It's okay to talk about horizontal and vertical. Just go and see. Wait. Arrived at the house. Annie quite satisfied with the review. The location is not bad. Not far from the downtown. There's also a river on the side. It's just that it's a little shabby. Su Qi complained in peace of mind. Can it not be worn? It's a haunted house. But he couldn't tell his aunt that. This house has been uninhabited for many years. Not even a rented one. Originally, the government thought that 4,000 taels could be sold. It's just that the homeowner doesn't agree. The aunt squinted at the old economy. How much does this house cost? The old economy stretched out 5 fingers and said 5,000 taels. The aunt immediately turned on the stabbing mode. But the old economy is also an experienced one. Cheeky and ear-eared east-west, north-south wind. Meet this glamorous lady. The girl with the beautiful and refined walked to the inner courtyard. The old economy was taken aback. Hurriedly looked at Xu Qian. It can be seen that Xu Qian looks like he is nothing. The old economy suddenly felt a chill behind him. People's hearts are not ancient. The old economy has done its best. Asked who these 2 were. Xu Qian quipped, what do you think? These words silenced the old economy. I was a little embarrassed for a while. Mother and sister. No, not that young. And there is no mother's love and filial piety between them. Husband and wife in their first marriage. The girl may be the wife of the old man, and the beautiful woman is the mother-in-law. What about yesterday's girl in the yellow dress? At this time, Xu Qian spoke, the older ones are my aunts. The younger one is my sister-in-law. The old agent suddenly showed a look of surprise. Nu said, I've never seen someone who bought a house and brought his sister and aunt with him. Because the aunt must be the wife of an uncle or uncle. He is a man of the clan, and not family. I took my aunt and cousin to see the house together. She really hadn't seen it. Although the aunt is mean and buried. It's useless to say that the house is useless. But in fact, I'm still very satisfied. It is also a large mansion with 3 entrances. The area is much larger than the Su mansion in the outer city. The pattern is also different. Aunt Yu tentatively said about the lot. I can't buy it for 5,000 taels. Xu Qian pointed to the well not far away. The well is haunted. Miss Kai Wei and I have verified it. 2 exclamations and a drooling sound, ringing at the same time. Of course, The one who swallowed saliva with small bean dice. I guess I remembered the fried ghost again. Su Lingyue and her aunt were so frightened that they retreated behind Xu Qian. Xiao Doubting was actually very scared. Saw that my sister and mother were hiding behind my eldest brother. He ran to the crotch of the eldest brother and hid it on his short legs. Then looked back at the wellhead. Continued to swallow while being afraid. Annie's pretty face turned a little pale. He holds a daughter in one hand. Hurried out of the house. Don't buy it back. The old economy, said with a sad face. You're entertaining me. Xu Qian waved his hand. Don't talk nonsense. Just go to the government and pay the deposit. The carriage stopped outside the office. In the car sat an aunt and two younger sisters. I heard that Xu Qian went to pay the deposit. The aunt was angry. I won't stay. Let her live in the haunted house by herself. Little bastard. I just don't want our mother and daughter to take advantage of it. Su Lingyue smiled bitterly and said that the eldest brother is not such a person. At this time, Xu Qian opened the curtain and leaned in. It's almost noon. Let's go to Guiwa Tower for dinner. Annie, don't look away. Snorted coldly. Xu Qian explained. In fact, the female ghost in the house has been solved. You don't believe it. The warlock of our heavenly sword always believes it. The aunt was shocked. Staring at Xu Qian, he asked. Really? Xu Qian smiled. Why am I lying to my aunt? Drive to Guiwa Tower. Asked for a private room. Xu Qian took out the jade path. Number 2, Missionary Road. I remember you saying that. The manipulator behind the investigation of the bandits in Yunzhou. After a while, a message came from the second. Yes, in the process of suppressing bandits. I found that there were a lot of materials in the stockpiles. These things are not available to mountain bandits. I suspect that there is a force behind it. Number 4 said, you can try to start with the local government in Yunzhou. By the way, I remember that Yunzhou had a vassal king. Number 2 said, King Gui is just a prince with no real power. I looked into him. No problem. Xu Qian asked. How to investigate? Reply number 2. Send someone to monitor the palace. Xu Qian complained in his heart. You are also called an investigation. It's too rude. Thereupon, transmitted to the supporters behind the bandits in Yunzhou, who I know. Number 2 and number 4. A series of question marks flashed through my mind. What information did number 3 get again? Why does number 3 always get so much information? That's all the news from the capital. After all, it's his territory. But Yunzhou has nothing to do with him. Number 2 was even more shocked. I've been looking it up for so long, and I don't have a clue. How could he possibly know? The back-the-scenes supporter of the Yunzhou bandits, number 2. What's going on with the transmission? Number 3, you tell me the inside information. When I owe you a favor. Xu Qian smiled and said no. I admire you as a person. This message is free. The force behind it is the witch god cult in the northeast. The Wushan sect is the driving force behind the bandits in Yunzhou. My message is not necessarily accurate. You can use the number 2 as a reference. Xu Qian had the idea of letting number 2 investigate. That's when he confided the matter to number 2. Cult of the witch god. Even if he is not a behind-the-scenes supporter of the Yunzhou bandits. Most of them are inseparable. Number 2 stares at the text message in the jade path. There was silence for a long time. The Wushan sect is the driving force behind the bandits in Yunzhou. Number 2 asked, how do you know? From what channel? I'm not tempting you for anything. Rather, they want to know the truth of the message. Xu Qian said, it didn't hurt last night. Hit the shift. A stronghold of the witch god cult in the capital was discovered. They had a close relationship with the Ministry of Industry. He gave a rough overview of the case. Number 2 clenched his fists excitedly. I see. This news is important to me. Verified me before. I guess. Thank you for my sudden annoyance. The Golden Lotus Dao Elder didn't pull you into the Heaven and Earth Society earlier. Jean Lien complained. Talk about business, talk about business. Don't give it away. There is also the witch god cult secretly supporting the bandits in Yunzhou. It doesn't mean much to them. Number 4 indicates support for Jean Lian's point of view. Yes, Yunzhou is in the southeast. The territory of the witch god cult is in the northeast. The two places are thousands of miles apart. Xu Qian'an's brows furrowed. That's what I wondered. Whether it's a military alliance or trade exchanges, none of them are realistic. Xu Qian Chuan Shu Road number 2. You can try to look it up. I believe in your abilities. I'm sure I'll find out. At this point, number 1 jumped out, announcing the matter of the squire. Reminds me of a detail from the Sambo case. If I were a former right scholar, through Zhou Baihu, and the convenience of arranging the ceremony of worshipping ancestors, quietly buried in the Yongzhen Mountain and River Temple. So who lit the fire? Number 2 guessed. The Forbidden Army. Xu Qian denied it. Not a forbidden army. If it's a forbidden army, the light lighter has long been found out. The full sacrifice of the patrol that night. There are also alibi witnesses for patrolling. Then there is the Ministry of Rights, the Secretary of the Ministry of Rights, who can't call the Forbidden Army. Number 2 asked, why number 1 replied that it was a court secret. Xu Qian was a little speechless. What court secrets are not confidential? Isn't it that Emperor Yuan Jing will let see Tianjian warlock every month? Do you have a heart-to-heart with the Forbidden Army? Suddenly, his heart moved. What did the 4 think? Xu Qian sent a message. Number 1 means, a member of the witch god cult, ignited the explosives in the Yongzhen Mountain and River Temple. Number 1 replied in the affirmative. Jean Lian said that it was a paper man. Number 1 asked, why is the Taoist so determined? Jean Lian disdains paper people. The puppet technique is still passed out by the Daomen. I naturally know that. The ability of the paper figure is low. It's a little stronger than ants. It can hide the perception of the warrior. It is not difficult to sneak into the Yongzhen Mountain and River Temple silently. But paper figurines can be used as a medium to ignite gunpowder. Number 1 suddenly. Other words, in the Sambo case, both the demon clan participated. There is also the witch god cult. Then the Qi party must also know about this. Xu Qian said, no, the Qi party and the witch god cult are just a partnership. It's not a subordinate or a superior. It is impossible for the witch god cult to tell everything to the Qi party. Number 1 replied, but one thing can be confirmed. The witch god cult has an affair with the demon clan. Xu Qian muttered. The demon clan blew up Sampa in order to seal the object. So what is the purpose of the witch god cult? It shouldn't be the severed hand of the monk of the sacred book. Otherwise, there is a conflict of interest. The two sides will fight. But Xu Qian thought about it. I found a dish that wasn't too much. It's been eaten up by the mother and daughter. The small beans are even more red-glossed. Xu Qian scolded and had a virtue with Chu Kaiwei. This side of the prison of the criminal department. A jailer opened the cell door and shouted to my lords, you can get out of prison. The first reaction of the crowd was, His Majesty's decree of condemnation was issued. Because the opponent's goal has been reached, there is no need to continue their detention. Can get out of the dungeon. He was told that he could sign the pledge. Get back their uniforms and gongs. This set of processes is very familiar to people. This means acquittal and reinstated. Someone muttered in a low voice, Your Majesty has pardoned us. Unlikely. This prison sentence. It is clearly the result of partisanship. How dangerous and vicious the party struggle is. As long as you seize the opportunity, you will kill your opponent. It's definitely not going to be easy to settle things down. Zhang Yuzhong quickly made a guess. Duke Wei gave up something. Swapped us out of the criminal department. Receive items such as uniforms, weapons, and waist tags. The tower lamps and the people left in silence. Okay, no. Nicholas Song said with a smile, and there is still a chance to see the light of day again. It's better to go and call Fonts Mary tonight. Agong was speechless. He had just come out of prison. You can't wait to make mistakes. Nicholas Song pouted and said, "What do you know? All such incorruptible harlots as my head have gone in. It doesn't matter if you're greedy or not. It just depends on whether the adults above want you or not." Jiang Lu said loyally, "You are quite perceptive." There was a gong that said that if Su Ningyin went, "We'll go." Jiang Luzhong's eyes lit up, said with a smile to the golden gong beside him, "Su Ningyin is the pet of the teaching department. Oirins compete for the object of pursuit. A while ago, Yang Yin and I took this group of little guys. Go to Kyobo Temple for a drink. Good guys except for the floating incense. There were also 4 Oirins present at the time. The Oirin of Kyobo Temple is worthy of its name. It makes me feel like I'm back when I was younger." Return to the yamen. The 3 golden gongs went to Hayakalu first. Listen to the teachings of the consolation and show faithfulness. Wei Yuan, just take advantage of this opportunity. Clear the crooked tendencies of the yamen. Manage your own subordinates. You can come out this time. It's not me who should be thanked. It's a different person. He is Xu Qian'an. This answer surprised the 4 Jin Luo. And unbelievable. Jiang Lu's Hong hugged Wei Gong. "I waited for what to happen while I was in prison." Wei Yuan immediately announced the book. The Case of Fornication with the Witch God Cult. Inform 4 Jin Luo. The importance of Xu Qian'an in the case is emphatically described. The 3 Jin Luo left the Haoqi building. Jiang Luzhong's face was depressed. Bad mood. One of the Golden Rose joked that you were jealous of the gong. Repeated meritorious service. Jiang Lu's Hong shook his head. "I should fight Yang Yin to the end. Recruit Xu Qian'an under his command." Another golden gong said, "Su Tong Luo is indeed a rare talent. It's just that the strength is lower." Jiang Lu's Hong subconsciously retorted that you know what a fart. You don't know him at all. But halfway through the conversation, he shut up again. Wei Gong had warned him. Don't reveal it. The 3 Jin Luo of Qian's qualifications looked at him. A look of displeasure on his face. I won't talk about it halfway through. Jiang Lu shook his head and couldn't speak. It can't be said that Jin Luo is angry with the surname Jiang. You are a Zweikinglu woman who takes off her clothes and twists her ass. Pure seduction, isn't it? Tell me what's going on with that little gong. I also think he's weird. Wei Yuan was too fond of a gong. Jiang Yuzhong waved his hand. Played a scoundrel. If you want to know, ask Wei Gong yourself. When the sky is getting darker, Su Xian returned home. Told the second uncle the news that the ghost house was bought. The second uncle's house has been idle for many years. It needs to be repaired. I took my aunt and sister-in-law to see it. The structure of the house is intact. It's just that some doors and windows are rotten. Su Pingji Chen Yin Dao renovated. Half a month is enough. Su Qian said for half a month. It's not about fine decoration. Why so much time? Su Qian said, let's hire a group of craftsmen. Find it from the outer city. Then let them rotate at 12 o'clock. So 7 days is about the same. Su Pingji was stunned for a moment. Why is it an outer city? The craftsmen of the inner city are better skilled. Su Qian said with a smile, because the carpenter in the outer city is cheap. I didn't know that the house was haunted. They can live in it with peace of mind. The family was speechless. This thing's heart is so black. Or my sweet nephew. Pastoral rest on this day. Su Jian, who didn't call Fong Si for almost a week. Because next he has to fulfill his 2 promises. The first is to help Chu Kaiwei be promoted to 16 grades. The second is to give Chu Kaiwei to eat below. Su Qian's goal is clear. It is to make a leakage version of the fund. He'd seen a video before. The person who posted the video was a foodie. He collected a lot of ancient recipes. Follow the steps of the recipe to make a meal. It was found. Ancient cuisine was not as delicious as one might think. After summing up, it was found. The biggest difference between modern cuisine and ancient cuisine is not. It is a change and an increase in the style. It's a revolution in seasonings. After coming into this world, Xu Qian'an strongly agrees with this statement. Although the chef of Gyula is very good, but the meals of ordinary people are very bland. Even if the Su family has boiled broth and the emergence of monosodium glutamate, it is a major breakthrough in the human food industry. I only know that the main ingredient of MSG is monosodium glutamate. It can be extracted from grain fermentation and kelp. But isn't it wine that comes out of the fermentation of grains? The option to extract MSG from kelp is removed directly, not adopted. The reason is simple. It's just that the cost is too high. Dafeng capital is located in the Central Plains. Stay away from the coast. Although there is water transportation and sea transportation, but the seafood is in the capital. It is still a luxury that can only be enjoyed by dignitaries. I want to extract enough MSG from kelp. Extremely large quantities are required. I can't extract much MSG when I buy it and go bankrupt, so I plan to use chicken essence instead of MSG. Thanks to one tuba when I was a kid, I looked at the ingredient list carefully when I was bored. The main component of chicken bouillon is guanylate. This is a freshness enhancement substance comparable to monosodium glutamate, whereas guanylate is abundant in shiitake mushrooms. Xu Qian'an was in the backyard first. Caught a fat big hen. Then put the shiitake mushrooms and old hen in a pot and boil. Wait until the soup is dry. Refill with water. Repeat this 3 times, until the essence of the chicken and shiitake mushrooms is fully absorbed by the soup. Finally, filter the residue. Only the essence of the soup remains. Place the pot in the shade of the backyard. Wait for the juice to dry naturally into lumps. Remove the solidified essence. Put in the old disposal. Mash in a powder. In the end, the minimalist version of the chicken essence was successfully made. The corners of Xu Qian'an's mouth curled slightly, although the quality is still very rough. But I have a hunch. Shotting beans will definitely eat 10 bowls today. Xu Qian'an came to the kitchen with the essence of chicken. The kitchen lady said in surprise, "The kitchen is such a greasy and dirty place. Why is Dalang here?" Xu Qian'an held the bowl in his hand. "Lightly, I made an exclusive formula. Come and help you cook." The cook looked at the bowl in his hand. Curiously reached for it. "What is it?" Xu Qian'an slapped his hand away. "Don't look at the good stuff. It's a recipe for it." After speaking, scooped a small spoonful of chicken essence and put it into the soup. Then Xu Qian'an tasted it lightly, nodding slightly. The umami taste has been improved a lot, but it can't be compared to the real essence of chicken. Guanylate and monosodium glutamate go hand in hand. I want to achieve the taste of the previous life. I still have to develop MSG. The cook saw this. I took a spoon and tasted it. Her eyes widened instantly. Forgot about stir-frying. The smell was both familiar and unfamiliar to her. It has the taste of chicken, but chicken definitely can't be so salty. A small scoop. It actually raised the umami of the soup by several grades. This is something that dashi can't do. Su Fu heard Su Lingyue come over with a meal. "Look around." Zhao Sheng said that the eldest brother, usual this time, the eldest brother was already sitting at the table waiting for the meal to start. Teased Su Lingyin with his hand. Second Uncle Su said that today's Humu. Maybe I'm going to call Fong Si. Su Lingyue looked displeased with her father. Just no nonsense. The eldest brother didn't even go to Guilin. Second Uncle Su sighed. "I used to think so. You don't go to the hook." Eldest brother. Now it is a task that the Oiran of the church division is vying for. Su Pingji sighed in his heart. He is now practicing qi. There is no need to defend oneself anymore. Isn't it human nature to go to the workshop division? Which man does not marry? Suddenly, I felt a murderous aura on the side. Su Pingji immediately changed his words. "Your father, me, and Erling never go. Mingyan has been, but it's all because there's no way to socialize. Speaking of which, the boys of our Su family don't like to go to the land of fireworks." Su Ling Moon phase. I believe my father's words. thinking about the proud second brother and the honest big brother. It's really not the kind of man who is nostalgic for the land of fireworks. Xiao, doubting, suddenly twitched his nose. So fragrant. At this time, the cooks came in with their meals. Stir-fried pork and cabbage yam soup with shiny winter bamboo shoots. Scrambled eggs with leeks. Lotus root stewed pork ribs, red oil, and white. And the pig's trotters fried by Xu Qian'an's own hands. Su Pingji said unexpectedly, "Today's food is so fragrant." He picked up a piece of hoof with a crunchy skin. "Can't wait to stuff it in your mouth and chew it." Then he was shocked and said that it was so delicious. The aunt pouted. The old man was too pompous. As he spoke, he also added a chopstick and put it in his mouth. After a few bites, her eyes widened instantly. "Today's cuisine is very different from the past. How did you do it?" The cook laughed. "It is the secret recipe of Daro." Annie was surprised. "Where did you get the recipe?" Xu Qian explained. "I just don't think the food at home is bland. The meals in Wei Yuelu are too expensive. I made some fools myself. Looks like it tastes pretty good." At this time, Xiao Doubting had already climbed onto the table, trying to move the plate to his side with his short hand. He frowned. The crisp shouting, "Is all mine." The family hurriedly pulled him down. "This thing is for stuttering. I really did everything." The next day, Xu Qian returned to the yamen. Colleagues learned, if there is no role for Xu Qian in the middle, the fate of many of them may be about to change. So they sincerely thanked Xu Qian. "I managed to cope with them." Xu Qian hung up his saber. Afternoon duty began. "Meet Nicholas Song," said Nye Yen. "You haven't been to Kyobo Temple in a while, right?" Xu Qian said, "Because I have a delusion now. It doesn't feel like I'm prostituting an Oiran. It's that they're prostituting me." Xu Qian said helplessly, "I feel like I'm almost at the peak of the Qi refining realm. I'm going to try the shock. Refining God realm." Zhu Guangxiao and Song Tingfeng looked at him stunned. "Practice the pinnacle of the Qi realm. The two of us are also at the peak of Qi cultivation. It's not that difficult. The difficulty is to accumulate meritorious deeds in exchange for an ornamental image." Song Tingfeng said sourly. "Then you have to accumulate meritorious deeds. But with your savings from the Samber case to the present, it feels like it's enough." Xu Qian lightly diverted the topic. "I'm going to save up for 2 weeks and then call Feng Si." Zhu Guang smiled. The Fuka girl was guilty. The three of them talked as they walked. Suddenly, all eyes were drawn to a burly and tall monk. "It is the monk Heng Yuan." Heng Yuan strode up. Lord Xu Qian frowned. "It's time to borrow money again." He hurriedly interrupted Heng Yuan's words. "Master Heng Yuan, I have official duties on my part. Let's cut a long story short. The official is only 5 taels of silver a month." Moon seemed sack. Shy. Song Tingfeng and Zhu Guangxiao stared at Heng Yuan with unkind expressions. It turned out that he was looking for Ning Yen to borrow silver. Seeing Xu Qian's refusal, he was simply scolded. Heng Yuan was silent for a long time. Finally, he bowed to Xu Qian. Said the poor monk, "I know the back of seeing the great monk leave." Xu Qian remembered when he was in middle school for no reason. His father traveled all the way to school to deliver food to him, was disgusted by him, and complained that the food was delivered in time. It is also the back of this lonely departure. Xu Qian immediately called out to him, "How much silver will I borrow this time? Let's be clear. I don't borrow too much. I really don't have much money lately." Heng Yun pulsed. He turned around and didn't speak. Instead, he imposed a decree on the Xu Qian River. Xu Qian said before that, "I have a request. I want to go to the health hall." Heng Yuan agreed without hesitation. "You can go with Xu Qian like 2 colleagues." Song Tingfeng glanced at him. "Why did he? And we have to go along. Are you not bringing money?" Xu Qian smiled, took 2 steps without speaking. Suddenly, the soles of my feet stepped on. The hard bump picked up naturally. Then he proudly rested it in the palm of his hand and displayed it. Look, isn't the money coming? Nicholas Song and Zhu Guangxiao are full of question marks. The three of them followed Heng Yuan out of the inner city. Walk in the direction of Chengdong Health Hall. It's a slum. Everywhere there were people dressed in sewing and mending old cotton jackets. They have yellow faces and thin muscles, eyes glazed. At this time, Heng Yuan said that he is optimistic about your wallet, although they didn't dare, and they will not be able to steal your money. Don't do charity here, because it would put yourself in an awkward position. Xu Qian'an said this, I understand, as long as I show kindness. For them, it's a big fat sheep. Xu Qian'an asked, I rarely come to such a place. Why don't they go to work? Heng Yuan compassion for those who survive in such a place. Most of them are displaced people who have no land. They may have had, but I can't stand the heavy swaying. So choose to give up the field, come to the city, and make a living. But there is no room for them in the city. Now, there are also catchers who come here to find bathing objects. But in order to survive, indeed, there are many traders among them. Between words, for people came to the health hall. Heng Yuan said a while ago, there were people from the government who came to repair the yard. But I exchanged the new plaque back to the old one. After all, it's too glamorous. It's not necessarily a good thing for Yang Shengtang. Enter the health hall. Heng Yuan led them inward. Heng Yuan said to Lord Su again, the poor monk knows that you are in trouble. I'm looking for your help. It's not borrowing money. I heard that you have a good relationship with the warlocks of Xu I would like you to help you find it. The white-clad sorcerers save a child. As he spoke, he opened the firewood door in the backyard. The first thing that catches your eye. It's a wizened black dog curled up on the ground. Movement is heard. The black dog moved, but he couldn't stand up. He struggled to lift. I saw a stranger at the beginning. The gray eyes subconsciously showed flattery. Poor flattery. Blessings are like the East China Sea. Good luck. Xu Qian'an was struck by lightning. Remembered when he saved number 6 Heng Yuan. Some of the things he said. This is the kid. Heng Yuan's face is compassionate. He would only say these 8 words. I rescued my junior brother Heng Hui when I was looking for him. Because he was treated so miserably. He won't live long. This time, I took the opportunity to warm his body. Barely kept him alive, but it won't last long. His health was very bad. It has to be treated. Otherwise, he would have died in 3 days at most. Ordinary doctors can't save him. Only the warlocks of the Xu sword can. The poor monk was helpless. I asked Lord Su for help. Nicholas Song opened his mouth. Perhaps death is the best destination for him. Heng Yuan whispered. Every day when the sun rises. His eyes were bright. I can read the desire in it. Because that's pure hope to just want to live. In the eyes of several people. He may be like a weed in the yard. Unworthy. But even if it's grass, I also want to live with tenacity. Xu Qian'an looked at the black dog deeply. I know. I'll ask the warlock of Xu to come and see you. The master later has a place where the silver is needed. Just come to me. But I give up to 3,000 silver a day. Song Tingfeng and Zhu Guangxiao were slightly angry. $3 per day. You must know that 8 coins are 1 tael. Xu Qian'an's moon worship. If you don't count Lumi, the real money you can get in your hands is only 4 or 5 taels. Where did he get so much money? By the way, he has 1,000 taels of gold rewarded by His Majesty. That's fine. Heng Yuan shook his head. Just wanted to refuse. Xu Qian'an was relieved and relieved. The money came in very well. It's like picking it up for nothing. Master Heng Yuan nodded. Pacified the black dog. Led Xu Qian'an and the 3 back to the front yard. 2 adults. Wait a moment. I have something to say. The adult said that Nicholas Song and Zhu Guangxiao nodded. He turned and walked away. The 2 entered a modest house. Heng Yuan officials came to the door. Put your hands together, and the aura of the Lord is deep. Shimaru is full of gas. Whether you are about to step into the realm of refining gods. Xu Qian was slightly surprised he saw it so accurately. I only know that number 6 is an 8-rank warrior monk. How strong it is not known. However, I don't know the strength of the people yet. But he knows how deep I am. Su Qi straightened his face. And what advice did the master have? Viewing pictures are available. Some. Master Hingyuan nodded suddenly. The poor monk is a monk. I can't pay back Lord Su's money. Originally, I wanted to wait for you to reach the peak of the Qi refining realm. Give the adult a picture of the visualization. Now that adults have this method, then the poor monk should change to a different kind of learning. I am an 8-rank warrior monk. None of the mystical spells of Buddhism will be used. I only know a few exercises. The best thing is the roar of the Buddhist lion. This technique is both ornamental and ornamental. It's also a masterpiece. Su Qian listened, immediately a little disappointed. The output is all about roaring. The lion's roar sounds like a reckless man. Lack of force. Hingyuan saw the loss in Su Qian's eyes. So he laughed. The poor monk can show the power of the lion's roar to the adults. Su Qi complained in peace of mind. Don't yell at me, I'm deaf. But he still sweated his hands. Then he reminded. It won't affect the elderly and children in the yard. Hingyuan shook his head. I'll keep the power in this room. After speaking, Su Qian saw the bitter and hateful number 6. Took a deep breath. Punch in a normal position. Su Qian complained that this punch was mediocre. There is no threat at all. A thought crossed his mind. I heard Chun Xiong's high-pitched roar in my ears. Su Qian had a concussion. Enters an unconscious state of vertigo. Wait for him to find himself. Then I saw a fist the size of a casserole. Hold it against the tip of your nose. Monk Hingyuan said in a deep voice, this magic circle swings the original god. Shock the enemy. Cultivate to a high and profound realm. Even if the world is drunk. Yin gods are also difficult to immune. Su Qian was overjoyed. This move is a slash with my heaven and earth. It's perfect. My biggest concern is the emptiness. With the control effect of the lion's roar, I'm not afraid that the ultimate move will fail. But then again, this is really just an 8-rank warrior monk. Hingyuan solemnly took out an album from his arms. Handed over to Su Qian. This book records the method of practicing Qi and my personal spiritual insights. Su Qian stretched out his hand to take it. But Hingyuan held down the seal. Chun Xingdao wants to pay it back. Su Qi scolded his mother with peace of mind. Why add this sentence? You've also heard of my prestige. Out of the room. Come to the front yard. After meeting up with 2 colleagues, we discussed it. I scraped together a tael of silver and donated it to the health hall. After the 3 people said goodbye to Hingyuan, walked to the gate. Nicholas Song suddenly turned around and ran back. Stared at Lao Liyuan without saying a word. Gnash one's teeth. The face is hideous. Old Liyuan looked at him with some fear. Song Ting gritted his teeth. As soon as the heart was crossed, he took off the money bag and threw it over. Su Mingyan, who suffered 1,000 cuts. Lao Tzu will come to this kind of place with you in the future. It's just your last name. Su Qian sneered. Lao Tzu is not uncommon. You have my surname. In the future, it would be nice for your son to have my last name. Lao Liyuan and the others walked away. Only then did he open his purse. Inside, it was Nicholas Song's 5 taels of silver that went to the Jiaofeng division tonight. Also his parents for a month. Returned to the inner city. Su Qian threw the work of patrolling the streets to 2 colleagues. I went to the Guanxin building. Su Qian looked around. I didn't find a brilliant spot either. So, he caught an alchemist. Asked Miss Kai Wei. The alchemist replied that the eldest princess was here. Senior sister Kai Wei accompanied him to meet the supervisor at the gossip platform. Su Qi is at ease with that beauty. My eldest wife and younger wife are here. He asked instead, what about senior brother Song? The alchemist replied, Senior Brother Song asked Huya for a death row prisoner. Research in the secret room. Xu Qian's back was cold. Immediately dispelled the idea of seeing relatives. Then he asked the alchemist to take him to the stove. He gave Chu Kaiwei something to eat below. At this moment, 2 light footsteps fell. The eldest princess asked, "How did you find the haunted mansion?" Su Ningyin wants to buy a house. I accompanied him to see feng shui. I know that. I try to ask how I found that house. The princess said this strangely. The old economy let us discover. The eldest princess frowned. What is so special about the old economy? Chu Kaiwei took out a piece of pastry out of nowhere and handed it to him. It's quite conscientious when you say it. Does the princess eat? The eldest princess waved her hand in refusal. Then he asked, quite conscientious, how to say this? Chu Kaiwei said while eating, Xu Qian felt that the ghost house was cheap. He's trying to stop us. For fear of causing trouble. The eldest princess tattoo is also full of black lines on her face. It's that Hanggu is not rational enough. I even tried to find out the news from him. At this time, Chu Kaiwei was still immersed in her own world. I like to be friends with Huaiqing the most. He won't grab anything good from me. Replaced by Su Ningyin's nasty ghost. I'm going to be polite on this shift. You might have actually eaten it. Princess Huaiqing can see it. Inquire about the news from Chu Kaiwei yourself. There is no difference between throwing a flattering eye at a blind man. Come to think of it, Princess Huaiqing's willow eyebrows are green. You actually got too close to Su Ningyin. Do you still hang out with other men so often? Chu Kaiwei was right. I snorted after realizing it. It's that he always comes to me in a different way. Princess Huaiqing was thoughtful. Suddenly, he smelled a fresh fragrance that seemed to be there. People can't help but salivate. Chu Kaiwei swallowed. His eyes glowed with longing. It's so fragrant in the stove room. Su Qian and flour are needed from time to time. Sometimes rubbing, sometimes pinching. Focused and serious. Soon after, throw the noodles into the boiling water and boil. Then he took out the porcelain vase from his bosom. Pour the chicken essence into the boiling stock. Suddenly, the sound of the array valve activating in the stove room dispersed. Then the rebellious voice sounded, holding the bright moon and picking the stars. There is no such person as me in the world. This put Su's wife into a clever one. What a neuropathy. It almost scared Lao Tzu out of a heart attack. Su Qian suddenly put away all his emotions. If you want to play, then I'll play with you. He kept a calm face. Lightly said that you are here. The back was stunned. This flat, deep voice. It seems that old friends who have been looking at each other for half their lives came spontaneously. The years passed. The vicissitudes of time. He replied in the same deep and flat tone. When I came, Su wifen often sighed. With a hoarse voice, he sighed with emotion, and he couldn't think of a farewell for 20 years. You still like to turn your back on sentient beings. The back of the white cloth trembled. Back to all sentient beings, these 4 simple words. Let him have a huge sense of substitution. I feel like I'm on top of it. There is a lonely, cold, and invincible tone. He groaned. But even if it's like this, I'm attracted to you too. Su Qi complained in peace of mind that it was so natural. There's something about this forcing the king. Su Qian said abruptly. I knew it. When this furnace was refined into 9 turns of the golden pill. It's the day you make a move. Still won't let me go. Forcing the king to snort coldly. The treasure house has a winner to live in. Su Qian sneered. Miriam Yang, have you worshipped? The atmosphere in the stove room suddenly became tense. But at this moment, a crisp voice breaks the atmosphere. What are you 2 doing? Su Qian immediately bowed his head. Hide the embarrassment that is tumbling in your heart. Miriam Yang was unmoved, still standing with his hands crossed. To everyone, even if the little junior sister intercedes for you. Neither will I. Chu Kaiwei said. Senior Brother Yang, why are you here in the stove room? Miriam Yang, Laugh dryly, I'll eat noodles. Chu Kaiwei happily ran to the stove. He said with a smile, How do you know I haven't eaten? Xu Qian smiled and said, I promised you. I'm going to give you something to eat below. Xu Qian turned to look at Princess Huiqing. Temptation of the eldest princess. Have a bowl too. The cold Princess Huiqing hesitated slightly, but the eyes fell uncontrollably on the bowl. Finally, he nodded a little uncomfortably. Okay, Xu Qian looked at senior brother Yang again. Come and eat together. The heart says just to see what you look like. But the idea just arose. He saw that Miriam Yang's soles had formation patterns spreading. Then the other person vanished. With that, a bowl of noodles was taken away. Chu Kaiwei tasted it. His eyes lit up. I feel like my taste buds have been hit like never before. He felt every cell in his body screaming deliciously. Although the eldest princess eats very elegantly, but also eat fast. In another quiet and unoccupied room, Miriam Yang, with her back to all beings, squatted in the corner, holding a bowl and eating spicy noodles. This kid is really interesting. Both alchemy. It sounds good. The boiled noodles were delicious. Come to think of it, Miriam Yang suddenly stopped. This kind of much-anticipated treatment. Isn't that exactly what I wanted? This kid is a fierce rival. Eat a bowl of noodles. Chu Kaiwei looked at Xu Qian expectantly. I asked how to make such delicious noodles. Xu Qian said proudly, This is my secret recipe. It is an essence extracted through unique alchemy. I am also going to teach you something that promotes an alchemist. But it's hard. After all, I'm only half aware. If you can't refine it, I won't be able to eat noodles like this in the future. I can't eat anything better. The little beauty with a goose egg face opens her eyes wide. Suddenly a strong fighting spirit burned. Princess Huiqing suddenly asked, This is your originality? Xu Qian nodded. I worked hard for Miss Kaiwei to create. Princess Huiqing glanced at her meaningfully, said in a tone that seemed to be a smile, but not a smile, You're quite interested in Kaiwei. Xu Qian suddenly regretted that he had a big mouth. What did you say about the painstaking creation of Miss Kaiwei? Can you say that in front of your eldest wife? Xu Qian hurriedly explained. Miss Kaiwei is my benefactor. Naturally, I'm interested. Chu Kaiwei was right. I'm still very happy. How attentive you are. Xu Qian said reservedly. There is a response. Then I remembered that Princess Huiqing was also a benefactor. I added that I did the same with the princess. Grant every wish. Princess Huiqing still has something to do. Xiao Saku took his leave after a while. Xu Qian took out the prepared alchemy cheats. It describes the process of making the fund, as well as the notion of unfinished. After discussing it with Miss Kaiwei for a long time, Xu Qian said, Right. I have something I would like to ask the brothers for 4 days. The voice just fell. Suddenly, there was a formation fluctuation in the hall. Then the rebellious voice rang out, holding the bright moon and picking the stars. There is no such person as me in the world. What do you need help with? Xu Qian's face suddenly sank. The voice was solemn, and we took a step to speak. See Tianjin's inspector. Xu Qian told the other party about the poor child. Senior brother Yang, that kid can't last 3 days. I would like to ask Si Tianjin's senior brother to help with the treatment. The reason why Xu Qian didn't look for Song Qin. It's the concept of being afraid of Rinshou. It will irritate his crazy cranial nerves.